November 21st, 2024 regular business meeting of the Boulder City Council. I'll call us to order, and can we do a roll call, please, Emily?
Absolutely, and good evening, everyone. We'll start tonight's roll call with Councilmember Adams.
Present.
Benjamin?
Present.
Mayor Brockett?
Present.
Folkerts?
Present.
Thank you. Marquis?
Present.
Schuhart?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Spear?
Present.
Councilmember Wallach?
Here.
And Weiner.
Here, but I can't seem to make my camera work.
Right, Tara, here we've got tech folks reaching out to you, so hopefully they'll be able
Great.
to get that resolved.
Yep, we'll get you going there. All right, well, Mayor, we have our quorum.
Fantastic. Well, our first item, 1A, is a Small Business Saturday declaration to be presented by Mayor Pro Tem Spear.
Thank you. And we have a few people here to receive the declaration from Gabby Coffee, one of our small businesses. We have Ho Young Che and Hyo Jung Kim and Yuri Lee. And you're welcome to come and join me up on the stage if you would like to while I read the declaration. Stage, dais. Feels like a stage sometimes. And we also have Sarah Wood from the Small Business Development Center. So if you would come up as well. Thank you. Wonderful, thank you. So I'll read the declaration and then you're welcome to say a few words, each of you, and then we will all applaud and you can go on about your evening. But thank you so much for making time. It's busy, especially being a small business owner, so thank you. The City of Boulder celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. According to the United States Small Business Administration, as of 2023, just under half of all American private sector employees work for a small business, and small businesses have created almost 2/3 of the nation's new jobs since 1995. Small businesses are particularly important in Boulder, where 96% of businesses have fewer than 50 employees. Advocacy groups and public and private organizations across the country have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday, to encourage community members to shop and eat locally during the holiday season. According to a national research study in 2022, 72% of consumers reported that Small Business Saturday makes them want to shop or eat at a small, independently owned business all year long, not just during the holiday season. That same year, it is estimated that Small Business Saturday drove almost $18 billion in consumer-reported spending. As Boulder and communities everywhere continue to recover from the impacts of the global health crisis, the city remains committed to supporting businesses. Our community is thankful for the businesses that serve our city, the many frontline workers that operate the shops and restaurants we love, and those who will shop and dine locally this season and all year long. We, the City Council of the City of Boulder, Colorado, declare November 30th, 2024 as Small Business Saturday, and urge the residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. And I just want to extend a special thank you to all the small businesses right now that serve as almost sub-communities, other communities within our community, because we need community so much right now. So thank you for all you do to create those spaces.
Good evening. My first language is not English, so please understand my poor English, but I make a small note to share some words. So, good evening, esteemed members of the Boulder City Council, distinguished guests, and community members. We are deeply honored and humbled to stand here today as a recipient of the Small Business Declaration. This recognition means so much to not only to us, but also to other team members, family, and also customers and supporters who have made this journey possible. 6 years ago, starting a small business as immigrants and minorities was not easy. There were challenges along the way, but we are able to overcome them thanks to the thanks to the incredible support of this community. Your encouragement help us navigate those difficult times. We are still learning how to give back to the community and what specific actions we can take to contribute as its members. However, with this small business declaration as a new milestone, we are committed to stepping into more meaningful role. I look forward to continuing to serve this city, growing our business, and contributing to the vibrant, diverse, and inclusive community we are all building together. Thank you again.
Well, Small Business Saturday, here we come. I'm Sarah Wood, Director of the Small Business Development Center, week 7, I think. So super happy to be here, and thank you all for supporting our small business community with this declaration, and thank you for contributing to our community as a small business. As you said, it's a huge part of our business community, and we are thrilled as the Small Business Development Center to be serving them. And a few stats to share. Last year, we served 925 businesses. We also performed 78 workshops, which had over 2,000 attendees. And recently, we strengthened our partnership with the city, and they are now providing increased operational support to the Boulder Small Business Development Center, which allows us to do more. And so we're super happy to be extending that and working throughout Boulder County for all of our small businesses and continuing to support them. So thank you for also shopping small on Small Business Saturday.
Thank you so much, and thank you for coming.
Well, Sarah, thanks so much for those words. And to the folks from Gabby Coffee, really appreciate you joining us here this evening. They do have some of the very best coffee in town, so if you haven't been by there before, you need to check it out. Absolutely. And thanks as well to Jennifer Pinsino from the city and Bettina Swigger from Downtown Boulder Partnership for joining us. And with that, let's go to open comment. Emily, if you could go over our public participation guidelines, please.
Absolutely. The city has engaged with community members to co-create a vision for productive, meaningful, and inclusive civic conversations. This vision supports physical and emotional safety for community members, staff, and council, as well as democracy for people of all ages, identities, lived experiences, and political perspectives. For more information about this vision and the community engagement processes, please visit thebouldercolorado.gov/services/productive atmospheres. The following are examples of rules of decorum found in the Boulder Revised Code and other guidelines that support this vision. These will be upheld during this meeting. Participants are required to sign up to speak using the name they are commonly known by, and individuals must display their whole name before being allowed to speak online. Currently, only audio testimony is permitted online. Only one person at a time at the podium, unless an accommodation like an interpreter is required. All remarks and testimony shall be limited to matters related to city business. No standing in or otherwise blocking the aisles. No participant shall stand or hold items such as signs or flags in a manner that blocks the views of another person. No participant shall make threats or use other forms of intimidation against any person. We ask that you not affix items to the podium or dais or walls or other surfaces of the chamber. Signs, flags, or other items used to communicate must be held by one person when displayed. Obscenity, other epithets based on race, gender, or religion, and other speech and behavior that disrupts or otherwise impedes the meeting will not be tolerated. In-person participants are asked to refrain from expressing support or disagreement verbally or with sounds such as applause or snapping, with the exception of declarations. Traditionally, support is shown through the American Sign Language, applause, or jazz hands. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that. All right, we've got 20 people signed up to speak. Each person will have 2 minutes, and I'll announce 3 names at a time. If you can start coming towards the podium as your name is called, please. And our first 3 speakers are Christopher Seitz, Steve Schaefer, and Tatiana Thibault. Is Christopher here? Not seeing him, then we'll go to Steve.
And I have a PowerPoint presentation. There we go.
And then also bring the microphone over to your mouth, please.
How's that better? Okay. Thank you. My name is Steve Schaefer. I'm a resident of downtown Boulder. And I'm here to describe an issue with the St. Julian extension relative to the pedestrian corridor that goes in the 10th Street and the alley. You can see on this picture, this area looks quite congested in the picture, and that will get even more congested with the addition of the St. Julian. The pedestrian path, which is shown in blue and purple, crosses the intersection of the alley and 10th Street, which meet at around a curve at a 90-degree angle. This creates a passageway which has very low visibility in both directions for vehicles and for pedestrians, thus reducing a potentially dangerous area. Next slide, please. I just have some pictures here. This is a photograph of that area. You can see the tall wall to the right, which is of the parking structure that blocks all views around the corner. The big transformer is there. Next slide, please. Here's another picture of that same area showing the congestion of traffic that we have even today without the extension. Next slide, please. And as we can see, sometimes the alley is completely blocked, which creates more difficulties in moving vehicles. Next slide, please. One thing that's happening, you can see in the green circle the existing trash of the St. Julian that causes the congestion. There's also a new trash area in the red oval, which will add additional congestion and can only be serviced from the alley. There has been a traffic study done of this, but that was in 2019 for a building that was much smaller than the extension. And we don't believe that that adequately evaluates the impact of the new facilities. And we're concerned about the pedestrian safety. Thank you very much. I request that you call this up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have Tatiana Thibault, Benya Basicis, and Eileen Walds.
Tatiana Thibault, I live in Boulder. St. Julian request for 55-foot height variance is often justified by citing the approved previously 55-foot tall children museum at the site, as you can see. However, it's important to note that the size of the building was approved at only 38,000 square feet. City Council also should know that 50,000 square foot figure for St. Julian expansion presented by the applicant accounts only for the habitable area, excluding the mezzanine and mechanical spaces. Their architectural plan shows a total building size of 60,000 square feet, if you can flip next slider, without additional, and it's also they adding no additional parking spots. The combined impact of 55-foot tall, 60,000 square foot structure plus a massive 12-foot tall mechanical unit on the roof, resulting in 67-foot tall structure, is staggering. And there are no true community benefit to granting such significant height and mass variances. Instead of providing benefits, this private expansion will harm the community, blocking neighboring properties, views, daylight, solar panels, plunging the Met building into dark, obstructed flat iron views from corridors, public rooftop deck. It will worsen parking problem and intensify traffic congestion on Walnut Street and 10th Street corridor, proposing building mass, bulk, and scale that does not meet site review criteria. We urge the City Council to take a leadership role and call up this proposal. Let's ensure that downtown Boulder is developed in thoughtful and respectful manner, preserving our precious Flatiron views for
Thank you.
everyone to enjoy.
Appreciate your testimony. Okay, now we have Benya Basicis, Eileen Walls, and Dennis Johannamite. I'll try that again later.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the City Council and beautiful citizens of Boulder. My name is Benya Basicis, and I and a few friends are here to share about an experience called Cohere that happened in October. So Cohere was a 10-day event series, an immersive game, intended to increase collective awareness of what's going on around Boulder, and also to cultivate a sense of belonging, interconnectedness, and resilience. While we designed a few of the events specific to Cohere, such as the opening and closing parties, the intention was to create an open container that highlighted many of the amazing things happening week to week in Boulder. Next slide, please. So we co-curated this calendar for 10 days and sent a daily digest with 4 to 7 events each day that people could choose their own adventure. And throughout that, meet one another in different contexts and expand their awareness of some of the amazing things happening around the city. And we have a next slide, please. A short video that will play. No sound to it, but I recommend you watch the full video online after this. And also at the opening ceremony, we invited people into play as a mindset and had an immersive game that went throughout the 10 days, which included these archetype cards, which represent roles that people can show up as in community. So the invitation was to, when you see someone embodying that role, gift it to them as inspiration and encouragement to continue showing up in that way. And so yeah, here's some of the scenes. As you can see, sharing food and music and laughs was core to it, and we'll have more people speaking to that. And our intention with bringing this to City Council is to lay the foundation for future collaboration between the city and community organizers like us. So for the city to support future events like Cohere, and for us to have eyes and ears into different subsets of the community that might not typically be reached by the research and community engagement activities that the city does. And thank you to Taisha for her involvement in making it an amazing event. With that, I'll hand it off to Eileen.
Thanks. Now we have Eileen.
So yeah, you can go to the next slide. And so yeah, Cohere was this really beautiful community experience. It genuinely just arose out of this desire to highlight all the beautiful things that happen in Boulder. I've been living in the area for about 10 years and helped co-steward this map of a lot of the just inspiring, activating, and brilliant things that are happening. And so we hope that this map can continue to expand and be updated and cared for and spread around to different parts of the community. We have copies that we'll pass around. And yeah, when I look at this, I really just want more people to be able to step into Boulder and find the place that is like their home and their connection, and help them come alive and come into different ways of activating and supporting more vibrancy and connection. So you can go to the next slide. And this is the artifact that we co-created at the end of the closing event. So we had a few people on our team who have experience in participatory research and really wanted to harness some of the both like harvest of what happened during those 10 days and also invite people to envision together what's possible from here. And so that's where you see some themes that emerged. So a lot of people just said that this was the most connected to place that they felt since they've moved here. Obviously, Boulder has a lot of transient folks as well as people who have been here their whole lives. And so really just wanting to make the web more accessible and interconnected and celebrate the diversity and strength that's possible through that. And so I know the script is really tiny, but there was a lot of really incredible things and stories that we got to hear throughout the course of the 10 days. And so I'm just excited to continue exploring how to be in collaboration together and align with the visioning of Boulder's brighter future. More on that.
Thank you. Right now we have Dennis Johanningmeyer, Travis Hale-Kelser, and James Colano.
My name is Dennis Johanningmeyer. Good evening, City Council members. My objective today is to respectfully request the City Council to call up the St. Julian application for height variance for your review. I live and work in downtown Boulder. My community service includes serving as the ARET HOA president. As you, council members, I devote countless hours to understanding a wider range of perspectives on matters impacting my community. As the ARET HOA president, I am blessed to be charged with the responsibility of listening to the voices in the room and directing the proper course of action. I call it the higher duty. Let's talk about why. The planning board debunked the civic use element of the St. Julian application. They attempted to get it right with motions that included an $80,000 contribution to the Affordable Housing Fund and 700 square feet of pavers on the roof. This was not the first committee to challenge the purported civic use. The Design Advisory Board and the Boulder Urban Renewal Authority both expressed concerns. At the planning board meeting, 30 people spoke against the approval. One was the general manager from the St. Julian. Not one nonprofit spoke on behalf of their civic use application. In conclusion, I ask you to embrace your higher duty and call up the St. Julian application for height variance based on civic use. It does not provide community benefit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we have Travis Hill-Kelser, James Colano, and Patty Fuster-Aguilera.
Good evening, City Council, and I just wanted to come in to have a little bit of update what is happening with the homeless community down the last few months. Things have been changing and shifting in a healthy way. The shelter has been adapting and becoming a little bit more healthy in the way how they approach certain individuals. My church has started the Illuminator Series program, where we've actually hired individuals to go into the community to get a little bit more self-worth and value, where we can have mutual trust and communication based on social capital to start getting better work ethic in certain individuals in the homeless community and allow more of a cleanly and also more sightly sort of look from the city. Because I can tell some individuals do feel like that matters a lot, but also public health and safety is paramount, and we're trying to shift it in the right direction. We just had a seminar on Saturday with 35 individuals, including a few sociologists, psychiatrists, and professionals in poverty, to come discuss on what we can do to change in the future. We're going to speak with Mike Butler, the ex-police chief of Longmont. We're going to have a system of allowing emergency resources for folks leaving jail, so they don't get themselves cold or so much constrained when they get released back in the public. We're going to meet with David Portillo of the Denver Foundation again for the third time to discuss about funding and other programs and substantial sort of work to be done. But we have been discussing and thinking about a warming center or possible sanctioned camping location, and at this time we do not have the knowledge, foundation, or the people who could actually make that work yet. It's still about 6 to 9 months out, but we're discussing about using our program to help condition and training individuals to be in the right direction to allow them to be prepared for such an influx of individuals, as some are worried with the election change and the change of powers. Certain individuals may lash out at family members or lash out at roommates, and some might end up being displaced and become homeless, and we worry that some mental health issues could get worse and things could get more violent in the future. Our organization is working to make it improve in the future, and we're going to update you in the next few months. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have James Colano, Patty Fuster-Aguilera, and David Adamson.
Good evening. I'm Jimmy Colano. I've lived in Boulder for 49 years. Back to the St. Julian. The site was always intended for civic use, and now there is a distinct likelihood that no square footage will be used for that purpose. The St. Julian could pivot and allocate no space for the public good. Is this the outcome Boulder initially anticipated? Would it be acceptable? Downtown Boulder has enjoyed the open views surrounding this pad for decades, and a multi-story building will block Flatiron views that citizens and visitors have come to relish. Are council members okay with killing our coveted world-renowned views? The expanded expansion will increase traffic, clogging a pristine corner of downtown Boulder. Do we really need yet more car congestion? 60,000 square feet is a 58% surge above the original 38,000 square feet originally improved. Does the neighborhood want this building bloat? And can the existing infrastructure even support it? The potential to add a public square with a skating rink, benches, and other amenities will likely be lost forever. Will Boulder citizens react favorably or with outrage? And finally, Boulder is gaining 2 nearby hotels a half-mile away in the University Hill area, so an additional 39 extended stay rooms are likely unneeded. Does Boulder really need more luxury hotel rooms with the expansion of an already large-scale hotel? Final question, are council members prepared to be held accountable for what could be a regrettable, poorly thought-through decision? Please call up this project and require that it be scaled back. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Patty Fuster Aguilera, David Adamson, and Pete Dordick.
I have a slide. My name is Dr. Patty Fuster Aguilera. I'm asking for City Council members to speak up about the genocide that is happening in Gaza and pass a ceasefire resolution, a genocide by Israel and funded by the US. I want you to look at this slide. Last night, this child went to sleep and it never woke up. He never woke up. He's under rubble. 88 people died at least. This morning they found them. I want you to understand that each one of you is complicit in the killing of these children. You are complicit in the murder of these children because your taxes are funding it. You are complicit in the murder of these children because you are remaining silent. You are complicit in the murder of these children because you are not using your voice to speak up for them. You are complicit in the murder of the children dying right now of illnesses and starvation because you remain silent. I want to remind you that power comes with responsibility. I have a responsibility to raise those voices that keep being silenced. I have a responsibility to speak up and make their voices be heard. You do too. Please use your power. This is why we come here every time and speak up. I'm here with and for my Palestinian and Lebanese siblings. This is the minimum I can do, raise my voice. I cannot comprehend how you all city council members don't use your power to do the minimum. Speak up. We see children under rubble every day. Look at this picture. Imagine the many children's dead bodies under rubble that will never be rescued. How are you not angry? How are you not speaking up? This is not a war. It's an ethnic cleansing. It's genocide. I need you to inform yourself. Some friend dropped these on your mailboxes. Check these out. Free Palestine.
Thank you. Now we have David Adamson, Pete Dordick, and Patricia Emser.
Hey, I'm David Adamson from 815 North Street, where I live and where I work at Goose Creek Community Land Trust. And I'm here to share a story with you about my friend, David Kavika Volmar. And to support the beautiful work of Cohere, I'm still connected, and hopefully get together with us after Thanksgiving. I was born at Boulder Community Hospital exactly 9 months after my parents met at the sink. And 40 years later, I met my wife at Boulder Community Hospital. And I won't say what happened in the waiting room there, but 18 years later, I spoke at the going away party for the brilliant urbanist and rejected planning board applicant, Zane Selvins, who was giving up on Boulder. and that we could have a diverse, welcoming, and inclusive community. And I spoke about how we shouldn't give up. And, oh my God, I met eyes with David Kavika Volmar, and he wanted to continue, and he was inspired to help our efforts at Goose Creek Community Land Trust. And then he was killed by a speeding motorist. And I pledged to build this building that he wanted to build and to continue this work. And Cohere is a beautiful way to do that. And I'm just so inspired by their work and by you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks, David. Okay, now we have Pete Dordick, Patricia Emser, and Trip West.
Hi, my name is Pete Dordick, and I live in South Boulder. Lived in Boulder since 1976. My family's been here even longer. In fact, my aunt was a waitress at the sink in 1954. I've watched this project, the St. Julian, unfold and followed it since SEMA first brought this plan to the city. That's been a number of years. I also want to say thank you to the council. We recognize the commitment you make to making Boulder a better community for all of its citizens. The civic use area has been subject of council discussions for a long, long time. By calling up the St. Julian application, this is your chance to finally get it right. If council is going to grant a community benefit for the height variance of 5 stories and 55 feet tall, then it should actually benefit the community. Let's be honest, the 9,000 square foot for-profit ballroom for the height variance of 5 stories and 55 feet is really not civic use space under any definition, but that's what the St. Julian application says it is. And let's be clear, we love the St. Julian. We often go there in the evenings to listen to music. It's a centerpiece of the community. But this is about doing what's best that we can with that space. And this application just isn't it. This is the last piece of open space in downtown with a view of the Flatirons. I respectfully ask that you call up this application as a way to fully determine an accurate definition and contribution of community benefit and community or civic use. The current application is neither. And let's make sure that traffic concerns, design issues of how having what will be one long solid block of buildings on Canyon will affect everyone in Boulder, and how this space can impact everyone who have long waited for the civic use of this space. Thank you. Please call it up for hearing.
Thank you. Now we have Patricia Emser, Trip West, and Gail Gordon.
Hello, Trish Emser here. Good evening. And I did provide slides. There's no need to do a cadence for me. If you want to flip through them, that's great, but it's intended for your review at your time. So on behalf of Bike Boulder, allow me to give you an overview of what's in this deck. First, you'll notice about 4 trend charts that describe a recent rise in the number of bike thefts. There's not only an increase in bike thefts, but also increasing bike value per bike stolen. Next, there is an analysis of bikes and e-bikes stolen last month, where we used what we call a superset of data from both Bike Index, the registry, plus Boulder Police reporting. Each data source that I just mentioned has its advantages. Boulder Police data includes the theft location, the value, the description of the bike, but there are no locking details provided to us. Bike Index typically provides the bike year, make, model, serial number, and sometimes we're lucky and we get the locking details. Where that data overlaps between both data sets, we get the most information. So what you'll also see in the deck is a deep dive on e-bike thefts last month. What we've seen, and as you look in the notes on that data, and bikes that were literally stolen with heavy duty bike security chains, is we need better way to secure our bikes. So in summary, and consistent with Bike Boulder's mission, we will continue to educate, report, and focus on more secure and equitable biking in our community. And on behalf of our organization, thank you all for your support very much.
Thank you. Now we have Trip West, Gail Gordon, and Tom Mayer.
Hello, everyone. I'm Trip West, and I live off 55th and Valemont. I'm also here to speak about Cohere. I just want to tell the story that, as a community organizer myself, this event was a dream for me because it is often that we find ourselves siloed in our own communities that we know and relate to, but this was a cross-pollination across diverse communities that otherwise would have never talked to one another. I know that you guys at City Council want and encourage communities to collaborate with one another for the health of this city. And in my opinion, if we want a healthy city, we need diverse perspectives and we need diverse collaboration to happen. And so that's what I see as the biggest, most impactful thing that this event represented to me. A lot of events happen in this city and a lot come and go. It's been a month since this has happened and it's still coming up in daily conversation with friends of mine. Something really special about this is that it kind of removed a lot of barriers to entry for people who are new to the city, for people who may not know different communities. It really was just in open arms. Come in, listen, learn, participate where you want to. And so, yeah, it felt really profoundly different than anything that I've witnessed before as a community organizer. I've seen different people shift their strategies based on what happened here. And we, as several members of creating Cohere, would really love to ask for some guidance from anyone on City Council who is interested in this project. If you would like, we are asking for guidance on how we can create more future collaboration together. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Gail Gordon, Tom Mayer, and James Duncan.
Good evening. My name is Gail Gordon.
Can you speak into the mic, please?
Oh. Good evening. My name is Gail Gordon. My husband Rob Gordon and I live at 377 West Arapahoe Lane. We've lived here 34 years. I'm speaking tonight on homeless encampments along Boulder Creek and homeless campfires. The current system is not working, which is to tag and remove 1 day a week. Our houses had a 16-day encampment behind it. Fine Park today had 12 to 15 encampments this afternoon. Our neighborhood is between Fine Park to the west and the Justice Center to the east. We suggest that the system remove encampments more frequently, which is to tag on Monday, respect the 72 hours, which is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, remove on Friday, tag on Thursday, remove the next Monday. I personally have called 911 myself 4 times for homeless campfires, 2 of which were teepees. The other one, 2 to 3 feet in height. One was a charcoal based, the other was similar, and they're ignited by some kind of fluid. Our canyon area is fire prone. It's a wind tunnel. If there is a fire, the embers will shoot down. It will encompass our neighborhood, destroy it, destroy the St. Julian, the business center of Pearl Street. So we urge that there be immediate, more frequent removal of encampments to prevent homeless campfires. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last 2 in-person speakers are Tom Mayer and James Duncan.
My name is Tom Mayer. I live in the Fraser Meadows Retirement Community in the eastern part of Boulder. I am saddened and angered by the failure of the City Council to pass a resolution against the Gaza genocide or the nuclear danger in Ukraine. I hope you are familiar with this important book, Hannah Arendt's Eichmann in Jerusalem, a report on the genocide of evil. The text of the book is about the trial of Adolf Eichmann in Jerusalem, but its subtext is why evil can occur in a society with mostly well-meaning people. And the reason is very simple. Although some few people will dream up evil things to do, the great majority of the people in that community will continue doing their normal activities in the face of an enormous evil. That is exactly what the Boulder City Council is doing, continuing its normal activities in the face of an enormous evil. It is participating in what Hannah Arendt called the banality of evil. Now, Adolf Eichmann was not a high-ranking Nazi. He did not start the Holocaust, and he did not have the power to end it. He merely arranged the train schedules, which brought people to the death camps. Now, I know you will resent the comparison, but I detect a distinct affinity between the Boulder City Council and Adolf Eichmann.
All right, and our final in-person speaker is James Duncan.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for your service. Yes, my friend Kristen recently wrote a short story that I'd like to read you. And the title was inspired by Maya Angelou. Caged, they were trapped, the remnants of a bombed building, their only shelter. Jed was watching Sella unfold a cardboard ammunition box and refold it along different lines to make an origami dove. He shrugged and kicked some spent shells toward her. He hissed, "Try using these to play peace songs." Sella picked up a shell with a bandaged hand and brought it to her cracked lips. She blew air across the metal, whistling "Imagine" by John Lennon. "What the heck are you doing? The devil will be ice skating before anyone dares join you," said Jed. Suddenly, a bird, a Palestinian sunbird, landed on a broken branch of a nearby olive tree and began to sing. This story illustrates how we can be trapped, caged by war. Why did the caged bird sing? Maybe the reason is hope. I hope that Boulder will join other cities, including Chicago, in passing a resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. A just peace will give us all reason to sing.
Thank you. Our three virtual speakers are Michael Broder, Daniel Dietzler, and Barbara Gordon.
Mayor, I do not see Michael Broder online, so we can move to Daniel Dietzler.
Very good.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Dietzler, 1077 Canyon Boulevard in Boulder. I'm speaking tonight to ask you, the City Council, to call up the St. Julian proposal. My wife and I have owned and enjoyed living in Boulder since 2011. We are the original owners. Our unit faces west and has an outdoor deck. The intent of your predecessors was that in exchange for approval of the original 200-room hotel, this pad was to be set aside for public benefit. Your predecessors did not anticipate a massive 60,000 square foot for-profit hotel building with no real community benefit. The Bureau Board review was limited to the urban renewal plan. The Planning Board review was limited to the site review criteria, though they had many questions about the proposed civic use and community benefit. The record reflects their challenges to reach their decisions. Many questions remain about this proposal. The City Council now has the authority to look at this proposal in a holistic manner. By calling up this matter, there will be ample opportunity for council members to ask questions and engage in thoughtful discussion. Your decision should be based on facts, including information from technical experts, as well as answers from the applicant made directly to the council. I encourage you as leaders to take the time to make the right decision. Please call up this important matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Barbara Gordon.
Mayor, I am also not seeing Barbara Gordon online.
All right, in that case, Daniel Dietzler was our last speaker. Well, thank you everyone for coming out and for your testimony this evening. I'll turn to city staff to see if there are any responses.
Good evening, Council, and thank you to everyone who came to the meeting tonight and shared their thoughts. Many of the comments were related to the St. Julian, which is on your agenda for a call-up later this evening, so I won't address that. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that Council may have.
Nothing from me, Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks. Anything from Council? Yep. Taisha and Lauren. Lauren and then Taisha. And I've got something.
I wanted to thank everyone for coming out and speaking today. Bike theft, homelessness, so many other topics, and I always appreciate hearing from a variety of our community members. For those who came to speak about the St. Julian expansion, I hope you will stay and listen to our following discussion where hopefully we'll chat a little bit about what we can and can't impact through our site review process. And for those who shared with us about the Cohere events, thank you for that, and I look forward to learning more about that. For those who came to ask us about a ceasefire resolution, I appreciate you continuing to draw attention to the actions of the Israeli government, and I support your efforts to prioritize peace and protection of human lives. While I share your concerns and value the passion behind this call, there currently is not enough support on our council to move forward this resolution. I do want to take a moment to acknowledge the pain being felt by both our Jewish and Muslim members of our community. You are seen, heard, and valued, and I'm committed to fostering a city where everyone feels safe and supported. And I hope we can continue working together to advocate for compassion and justice, both locally and globally. Thank you.
Thanks. Taisha, and then I got Tara.
Thank you, Councilmember Folkerts, for those comments. I also want to thank all those who spoke today, also for our recipients. I remember when you all opened, and just a big fan of your work. Okay. Having said that, I also wanted to, again, speak to the Cohere organizers in appreciation for that opportunity. I would agree, and at least in my 13 years of living and serving in this community, it was definitely a cross-section of community intergenerationally, geographically. It just was really wonderful, and I look forward to future opportunities. And I know that there's some events that are coming up, so as those opportunities present themselves, please send us an invitation. We have a council calendar, and would love to have other council members be able to participate and experience what you all are beautifully building, the kindergarten, if you will, that you are building for us. I also wanted to thank you for the bike theft and that reminder. I was reminded that I have a CAC request drafted, and that is actually on it. Spoiler alert. Again, as we ask our community to transition away from cars and fossil fuel, myself included with e-bikes, there's a difference between e-bikes and road bikes or more traditional bikes, and I'm hopeful that our policy framework and enforcement can evolve with the evolving of the technology, the cost, and the safety issues. I also wanted to thank those who continue to come and advocate for a ceasefire, an arms embargo, and divestment in organizations and companies that are funding this genocide. I use the term genocide purposely because I am a believer in the United Nations after studying and getting my degrees in international education with a focus on international affairs. I also used to run a Model UN program, so it's very close to my heart. There will be consequences for funding the mass slaughter of women, men, children, non-binary, and non-gender conforming people. There will be consequences for the ecocide that we are witnessing, the destruction that we are witnessing. We are in a climate crisis, we all agree. In that CAC request will also be a request for a review of our social investments for our city and the criteria that we are using. As we talked a couple of weeks ago about Caterpillar, we are investing, we are funding some of our services off of those investments. We are 100% tied. It is devastating to me to know that I'm funding it. It is devastating to me to know that we, as a council, are unable to come to any agreement on what a response would look like, considering that we do have skin in the game and blood on our hands. And let's see, that's all that I have. Thank you so much again, and I look forward to continued conversations and opportunities to activate collectively for lives near and far. Thank you.
Thanks. I got Tara and then Mark.
Well, first I want to thank you, Trish Emser, for bringing forward the problems, the big problems that we're having with bike theft right now that are affecting our climate goals and our transportation goals, and are also disproportionately affecting people in lower income brackets, because it's just not possible for a lot of people to get another bike when their bike is stolen. 51 e-bikes is just crazy, and a lot of people use it for transportation. That is their car. So I appreciate that you are, and your committee is bringing this up. Thank you very much for bringing it to the forefront. And Gail Gordon, I wanted to thank you for speaking tonight. I am very concerned about fires from the fires in our very fire sensitive community. And I want you to know that it's on my heart, and I am working at trying to figure out a solution of some type. And lastly, I just want to say that I object to the statement of blood on our hands. I personally object to it. I promised that I would not speak about international affairs. And so that's all I'm going to say for that. And that's all I have.
Thanks. There we got, yes, ma'am.
I wanted to just clarify that I did not say that there was blood on our hands. I said blood on my hands. Thank you.
Very good. Mark?
Two comments. One, I object to the weekly or bi-weekly relitigation of the same subject we had already disposed of many months ago. I think it's inappropriate that we do that. But more significantly, one of the speakers tonight essentially called us the equivalent of Adolf Eichmann for the way in which we conduct ourselves. As a council member of the Jewish faith, I cannot think of very many epithets that are more disgraceful and more harmful to be using. And to me, that is the use of free speech, which we always promote, to foment hate speech, because that is a form of hate speech to me. To suggest that the members of this council are the equivalent of Adolf Eichmann is reprehensible, to say the very least. And so I am not going to stay silent when that kind of comment is made anymore. I'm going to respond to it, and I'm responding to it now. That is disgraceful. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Mark. Yeah, and so quiet, please, in the audience. All right, so that brings us to the end of open comment. Appreciate folks joining us here this week, and we are going to move now to the consent agenda, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Next on tonight's agenda, we have our consent agenda items, and those are items A through K.
Any council questions or comments on any of these? Yes, Tina?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on item H, but just on the supplemental appropriations to the 2024 budget, and lifting up that we've dedicated another $500,000 to 2 organizations working on homelessness, All Roads and Together, and partly in response to some of the hardships we anticipate that we'll be facing. So obviously, this reflects priorities, and this budget, these appropriation changes don't get as much attention as the original budget, but I just wanted to lift up that piece of the supplemental. Thanks.
Thanks for that. Anything else? Mark?
Yeah, I'm generally supportive of these adjustment to base supplemental appropriations, but I would like to know when we are making disbursements out of fund balance, what is the impact on the fund balance? What is the remaining fund balance? To what extent are we drawing down on the fund balance, and what is left? And that is information that I don't think we really have here. So I would ask staff to at least give us some indication of whether we are skimming a small amount from the fund balance, or we are drawing it down substantially or getting close to zero. And if so, how are we intending to replenish the fund balance?
Chris, do you want to address that?
Sure, I'm happy to address that. And Mark, thanks for the question. And if it works for council, we'll treat that as a first reading question and include more information in the second reading memo, if that works.
Perfect.
Sounds good. Anything else or a motion?
I had just something that I wanted to bring to attention. I had some questions about the micro trenching. I see that this is only on first reading at the moment, but I believe it's scheduled to be on our consent agenda for second reading, particularly where the micro trenching is happening in bike lanes along where kind of the curb and gutter meets the road. If there's any additional photo documentation or sort of, I don't know, things that it doesn't have to be this meeting, but maybe the next meeting. Or I see Brad approaching the podium. So maybe you could, I'm not a great cyclist, and that little seam has caused me trouble before. And I have concerns about making that, allowing for that to be exacerbated through this.
Yeah, thank you. Brad Mueller, Planning and Development Services Director. A great deal of thought was given into that concern. We met with community members, Community Cycles, and others to kind of vet that. It's a series of trade-offs, to be sure. Mark Garcia, the Senior Engineering Manager, is online to elaborate, or we could also follow up with some written documentation to walk through that as you like.
Yeah, that would maybe be great before our second reading.
Okay, we'll be sure to cover that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Anybody interested in a motion?
I'll make a motion to pass our consent agenda.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please, Emily?
Absolutely. We'll start the roll call on tonight's consent agenda with Mayor Pro Tem Spear.
Yes.
Councilmember Wallach.
Aye.
Weiner.
Yes.
Councilmember Adams.
Yes.
Benjamin.
Yes.
Mayor Brockett.
Yes.
Councilmember Folkerts.
Yes.
Marquis.
Yes.
And Shuhar.
Yes.
The consent agenda is hereby unanimously approved.
Thank you, Emily. Can we go to our first call-up check-in, please?
Yes, of course. Our first call-up check-in this evening is item number 4A, and that is a consideration of a site review amendment for an approximately 55-foot tall structure with 50,069 square foot of floor area with a first floor meeting space, mechanical mezzanine, and upper level hotel rooms connected to the existing St. Julian Hotel at 900 Walnut Street, reviewed under case number LUR 2023-00046.
Thanks. Any questions or comments or interest in calling this one up? I will, let's see, Mark. I got Mark and Tara, and then I got something.
Yes, I have great interest in calling this up. I think there are many questions surrounding the project that would be best dealt with at a public hearing. And also, I consider a call-up when there is such a controversial project as simply part of our job, giving voice to the community and letting them express their views and their concerns, and not simply riding roughshod over them. And we have received enough expressions of interest in this project, pro and con, that I think it is well worth a public discussion. So yes, I would like to call it up.
Got it. Tara?
Yes, according to our city council manual, it says that if something is a matter of substantial public interest, then we are able, we are able to call it up. And for that reason, I would like to call it up as well. I also am very interested in, as far as in Councilmember Folkert's comment about what we can and can't weigh in on. So I'm in many respects interested and curious to call it up.
Thanks for that. I'll call on myself, and I do also have interest in calling this up to explore how the project may or may not comply with the site review criteria. But I've got a question, and how this may be for you or it may be for Teresa, in terms of what the scope of our deliberations would be, because I know that some have asked about whether we could have a different civic use in place of the one proposed, but we have this 2019 agreement. So maybe Teresa, you can talk about what our decision space might be around this project.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. A review would be limited to the criteria laid out for site review. And as you said, there is a November 2019 agreement. City Council authorized the city manager to enter into a management and operating agreement with the St. Julian regarding the civic use of this site. That agreement outlines the terms of that use, and this council is now bound by that agreement. And so, to put it bluntly, the moment for civic use comments has come and gone. Certainly, we're always interested to hear what the public has to say, but we are bound by a legal agreement in this situation.
Thanks for clarifying that. I appreciate it. I got Nicole and Lauren, or Lauren and then Nicole, and we'll come back to you, Mark.
I think this might be planning and development services team, although maybe Hella, but could you clarify for us what exemptions what the site review process could approve that the applicant is asking for in this case? Like what aspects of the project require site review approval so that the community can better understand in terms of what kinds of things they might tailor their feedback to if we do call this up?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember. Again, Brad Mueller, Planning and Development Services. This is a criteria-based decision, so I would be happy to articulate that a little bit. Shannon Muller's on the line. Maybe she can elaborate a bit on that, and Hella can maybe clean up on that.
Sure. I can speak to that. I'm Shannon Mueller, City Boulder Planning Department. So yeah, the project is in a site review, amending the existing site review that was approved for the St. Julian. So we're reviewing it under the site review criteria. The project has modifications that are requested through site review, including for height and some setback modifications. So we're reviewing it under kind of the standard site review criteria.
Thank you.
Nicole.
And I have two questions about this, I think, one for each of you, Teresa and Chris. One is just to make sure I understand. Planning Board did a criteria-based review of this, and I believe they were unanimous or nearly unanimous on everything, if I'm remembering the notes correctly. But would we review this with the same criteria? I mean, is anything going to change in the way that we would review this versus how they did and the criteria they used?
I'm trying to get an answer to whether it was unanimous or not, so we'll get back to you on that. But certainly planning board did approve it. Council is bound by the criteria and would look at the exact same criteria.
Okay, thank you. And then, Chris, this is a question for you, and I'm about to roll off of the council agenda committee, so this is about to not be my struggle anymore, but I do want to be sensitive to what a struggle it has been on the council agenda committee to try to fit in the things that we need to talk about for our work plan and for the city's strategic priorities. And so I guess the question I have is how do we fit in more things without ending with 4 or 5 hour meetings as we head into winter?
Sure, I appreciate the question. And as we look forward on the council agendas, many of them are pretty full through the end of the year. So if the application is called up, then we would bring to CAC some options for scheduling this item, and that may cause some shuffling of the future calendar to accommodate it. But we would try and bring forward some options that have the least impact if it is called up.
Okay, thank you. I am leaning toward not calling it up just because I really don't know that we would reach a different conclusion than planning board did. And because our agenda is just so full, and many of those things are the work plan priorities that we all agreed were going to be the priorities for this council. But again, I only have one more CAC meeting as the mayor pro tem, so it's about to not be my struggle. So if a majority of you would like to do that, good luck to CAC.
I'll just add that should this body call it up, this body would have 60 days in which to review it. So it would be a quick turnaround in terms of review.
Understood.
Maybe just one follow-up, like the things that we've got coming up, if I'm remembering correctly, it's things like homelessness, it's things like some of the compliance changes we need to do for state law regarding ADUs, occupancy, those kinds of things. So we've got some pretty meaty topics coming up.
I got Mark, and then maybe we can move to a final call on this.
Just a quick question for the city attorney. Teresa, does being eligible for some of the variances that the developer has asked for imply an obligation to grant them?
Councilmember Wallach, are you speaking specifically about the height variance?
The height, the mechanicals, et cetera. If we establish that a project is eligible, as most seem to be these days, for 55-foot height, is that not a discretionary matter on the part of council?
I'm going to, excuse me, I'm going to turn to my learned colleague, Hella, here, because while I have a working knowledge of it, she has an in-depth knowledge.
Hannah Pennewick with the City Attorney's Office. Closer? Yep. Okay, Hella Pennewick with the City Attorney's Office. The variances that are requested, or modifications is what we call them in the site review process, have to be approved if the criteria that apply to them are met.
Can you be a little more specific? I'm trying to understand why we do not have discretion over a requested variance.
I think you do have some discretion to the extent that the review criteria are discretional, and a lot of the site review criteria are. So a number of modifications then that can be requested have to just be granted if the general site review criteria are met. So there's not special criteria for many of them. For some there are, and the height modification is one of those. But that can be, the requirement for that can be met by payment of an increased affordable housing linkage fee.
Yeah, thank you.
Aaron, can I have a quick colloquy?
Sure.
Okay. In regards to what Mark says, can you confirm also if I think one of the people was talking about the mechanicals being over 55 feet. Can you confirm that? And is that allowed in terms of our height limit?
Who's going to take that?
I can answer that question. Yeah, the city does allow for rooftop appurtenances. There's a code section regarding that any rooftop appurtenance needs to meet, and the proposed rooftop appurtenances would be consistent with our code requirements in this case.
Thanks for that. All right, so is anyone interested in making a motion to call this project up? Tara, I see. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
I move that we call up the St. Julian project for public hearing.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Great, we got a motion and a second. I think we can do a hand raise on this one. All in favor, raise your physical hand. Got 6. All right, or 7. All right, so that motion carries successfully, so we will call that one up. All right, that's it for that one. And if we can go up to the next call check-in, please.
Yes, next we have our call-up check-in item 4B for a landmark alteration certificate application to modify the front dormer and entry of the house at 2041 5th Street in the Mapleton Hill Historic District, pursuant to Section 9-11-18 of the Boulder Revised Code 1981, and under the procedures prescribed by Chapter 1-3, Quasi-Judicial Hearings, BRC 1981.
Any questions, comments, or desire to call this one up? I am not seeing any. Next one, please.
All right, our next call-up check-in is item 4C for a landmark alteration certificate application to construct a new 715 square foot accessory building at 575 Euclid Avenue, a pending landmark pursuant to Section 9-11-18 of the Boulder Revised Code 1981 and under the procedures prescribed by Chapter 1-3, Quasi-Judicial Hearings, BRC 1981.
Any questions, comments, or desire to call this one up? Not seeing any here either. So can we move to our first public hearing, please?
Absolutely. Our first public hearing tonight will be item 5A. That is for consideration of a motion to approve and authorize the city manager to enter into, execute, and negotiate administrative amendments prior to or during the term, a 20-year fiber backbone lease agreement in substantially the same form as an attachment A between the City of Boulder and Allo Communications LLC, leasing the city's dark fiber backbone for retail broadband services, with the City Council finding that the lease and the construction associated therewith will provide a public benefit to the City of Boulder.
Thanks. Chris, you want to take it away?
I will kick it off here briefly. We're excited to present this item to you tonight, and Mike Giansanti, the Deputy Director from our Innovation and Technology Department, is going to give the presentation. Mike is online. He's a little bit under the weather, so we appreciate him keeping the germs at home. But we've got lots of folks here from the team that Mike will introduce, and Mike will go over the history of this a little bit, but the real effort on this actually began even further back than that, beginning with a community conversation around the role of the city in broadband. And so we're very excited to bring this presentation for you tonight. So with that, Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Chris, and good evening, Council. As Chris said, Mike Giansanti, Deputy Director of Innovation and Technology, and I apologize in advance for my voice. As Chris mentioned, I'm just getting over being sick. Super grateful to be joined by my colleagues who are in person and available to help answer any of your questions this evening. In front of you on the dais are Don Mulvey, my counterpart in Innovation and Technology, overseeing our IT infrastructure, and Andy Frohart, who is our legal counsel from the City Attorney's Office on this matter. Also in the room tonight are Jennifer Douglas, our Chief Innovation and Technology Officer, Dan Nelson, our Senior Project Manager on the Community Broadband Program, and Mark Garcia from Planning and Development Services. We also have in the room 3 gentlemen from Allo Communications, Brad Moline, the President and CEO, Bob Biasford, the Regional General Manager in Colorado, and Andrew Vinton, Allo's Legal and Regulatory Director. Next slide, Don. Our purpose here tonight is to obtain your approval to execute a lease agreement with Allo for a substantial portion of our city-owned fiber backbone. And as you likely saw in our memo, and as I will outline here tonight, the terms of the lease will yield both direct financial compensation for the city and direct community benefits through this new fiber-based internet service provided by Allo throughout the entire Boulder community. And what I hope you find is that we've structured a deal where the retail internet services will be provided to our community in a manner that is centered on Council's 6 objectives for this program, which we'll touch on this evening. Next slide. Before I dive into the deal, just a quick history on what brought us to this point tonight. And as Chris alluded to, this matter dates even farther back than what is outlined on this slide here. But in 2018, Council did take some significant action related to improving internet connectivity in Boulder by investing $20 million of funds for the design and construction of our 50-plus mile fiber backbone that runs along the main transportation corridors in the city. This fiber backbone was completed earlier this year, which is a huge milestone and win for the city. The intent back in 2018, 2019, when this was approved, was to enable a future council to make decisions on how to best utilize that asset to bring affordable fiber-based internet to all Boulderites. And as many of you on council likely remember from last year, we had a series of study sessions and a public hearing that was backed by staff and consultant analysis, and council voted unanimously to have staff move forward to seek a private party to lease a portion of our backbone and use it to provide retail internet services to the community. That was opposed to the option of a $250+ million city investment in a fully municipal city network. So beginning earlier this year, we issued a request for proposals seeking organizations who were willing to bring both capital and expertise into Boulder to leverage our investment in the backbone and to build a secondary network off of that backbone and serve the community. From the RFP, we evaluated 3 possible vendors. We looked at the work that these vendors had done elsewhere. We looked at their financial standings, and we looked at how well suited their proposals were to meet our 6 council objectives for community broadband. And from that analysis, it was clear that Allo was best suited to do that. And so over the course of the summer and into the fall months, we've worked really hard with the folks at Allo to structure a deal that's in front of you this evening that we believe allows Allo to run a financially viable business here in Boulder, while at the same time achieving the 6 objectives that we've set forward for this work. So tonight, for essentially the cost of the $20 million that we've invested in the backbone infrastructure, we have the opportunity to bring in, excuse me, a world-class internet provider in Allo to build a 100% fiber-to-the-home network to serve our community and do so in a way that is affordable to our taxpayers, competitive in the market, and equitable for all Boulderites. Next slide, please. So just really briefly here, who is Allo? Allo is a telecom company based in Lincoln, Nebraska. They operate in 47 cities across 4 states, Missouri, Nebraska, Colorado, and Arizona. They offer fiber-based internet, TV, and phone services, and they serve a population of about 1.2 million folks. They are growing quite rapidly here in Colorado. Our neighbors in Erie and in Greeley are both beneficiaries of Allo service today. And if this deal goes through, Allo would become, or Boulder would become, the 11th city served by Allo in the state of Colorado. Next slide. So I'm going to walk through the deal terms in sort of 3 sections tonight: the financial items, the impacts to our backbone infrastructure, and then the community benefits organized around those 6 objectives. But first, this is a 20-year lease with an option for a 10-year renewal in 20 years. We are leasing half of our dark fiber capacity in our first backbone conduit and leasing the entirety of the empty second conduit with an exchange of dark fiber in that conduit that will ultimately exceed the amount being leased to Allo in the first conduit. And so I realize that's a bit confusing. I have a visual here in 1 second. I'll talk a little bit more about it. But the city will be paid a $1.5 million lease fee up front, and then success-based payments of $2.25 a month per residential customer and $9 per month for business customer, which nets out to a net present value of about $9 million valuation for the lease for the city. The mix of the upfront and the success-based payment was done to maximize the financial value of this for the city, while also placing a pretty substantial floor of $1.5 million to the deal that will allow us to continue investing in the broader community broadband program in the near term. So Don, you can flash up the graphic on the right side. So just back to what this specifically means for our infrastructure in the ground. Right now, when we talk about our, our backbone, what you're looking at here is a cross-sectional view. We have two 2-inch conduits in the ground. In conduit number 1, we have 432 total strands of dark fiber, and currently today, conduit 2 is completely empty. The city will be leasing half of the 432 strands in conduit 1 to Allo, and we will be retaining the other half, the other 216, for governmental purposes and other uses, a lot of which is already lit up and being utilized for connecting traffic signals, connecting public safety communications, and other uses. In conduit 2, Allo, at their cost, will be installing 5 microducts, or smaller conduits. Each of those microducts will contain 288 strands of dark fiber. Allo will keep 4 of those under their own ownership, and the city will take ownership of 1 of those 5. So effectively, the city is increasing our dark fiber capacity at no additional cost to the city. We'll be giving 216 in conduit 1 on a lease to Allo over the 20-year term of the deal, and we will be receiving complete ownership of 288 strands of dark fiber in 1 of those microducts in conduit 2. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And before I go into how I believe this deal meets and hopefully exceeds Council's 6 objectives for this project, I just want to quickly remind you of those 6 objectives that I've alluded to probably a dozen times so far in this past 7 minutes. Those are citywide access, competitive marketplace, equitable and inclusive, future-oriented, net neutrality, and consumer privacy. Okay, Don, let's go into the next slide. So the first is citywide access. Under the lease term, Allo is committing to build out their network to 80% of the city within 3 years and to 97% of the city within 5 years. They are also agreeing to serve any newly annexed or developed areas in the city within 2 years of such a thing occurring. Effectively, Allo is agreeing to serve the entire city and wants to serve the entire city. That 3% buffer that we see here with that 97% threshold is really left to account for any areas that might arise as not accessible due to property owner refusal or right-of-way issues or any sort of geological issues we might run into in certain areas of town. On a case-by-case basis, the city would evaluate these. Again, we expect this to be the exception, not the rule, and the city obviously maintains the right to serve this 3% or less as deemed appropriate at the time. Next on is competitive marketplace. We worked really hard to ensure that Allo was going to be bringing a competitive product to the Boulder market to ensure that every single Boulderite has access to affordable fiber-based internet, and we're really, really happy to share that Allo's all-in pricing, which means what they advertise as their price is what you pay. There's no additional fees or add-ons. That amount is capped at each tier at the max that Allo will offer in any other major Colorado market, meaning people in Boulder will not pay more for Allo internet than people in Erie or Greeley or any other major Allo market now or in the future for the tier of internet that they are getting. And we felt that this was critically important to sort of cap pricing here in Boulder because we have made some assumptions based on our experience building conduit here in Boulder that our geology is such that it generally is more expensive to construct here in Boulder than it is in neighboring communities east of here. And we wanted to create a situation where we weren't seeing those construction costs directly passed on to our Boulder consumers and rather mitigated a little bit out through the entirety of the ALLO network. And so we're excited about that provision. We're also happy to share that ALLO will not use residential contracts, which will give customers a lot of flexibility. They'll offer several tiers of service. Currently in Colorado, those tiers are being offered at $79 a month for a 500 megabit symmetrical service, $108 for a gig symmetrical, and $136 for 2.3 gig symmetrical service. ALLO will also offer what the industry traditionally refers to as triple play services, where customers can bundle fiber-based phone and fiber-based TV services along with their internet services. One important note here is that ALLO's ability to provide TV services will require them to have a separate cable franchise agreement with the city. That agreement will be brought forward for council approval at a later date, likely in Q1 or Q2 of 2025. And given the importance of that revenue stream for ALLO, we've made the terms of this deal conditional on the approval of a cable franchise agreement, which again will be brought separately in early 2025. Next on is equitable and inclusive. And we heard loud and clear from the 9 of you on council, from your predecessors, and from our community how critically important this item was, and we placed an incredible amount of importance on this in our negotiation with ALLO, particularly given the fact that the federal government's affordable connectivity program funding has now lapsed as of April of this year. We worked really hard with ALLO to make sure that we were getting affordability for all, including those that were previously eligible for the affordable connectivity program. ALLO has agreed to provide a substantially similar amount, $30 a month, which was the deal through the Affordable Connectivity Plan, a $30 a month subsidy to all Boulderites who live in affordable housing or otherwise qualify for any sort of federal government financial assistance. These are using the same parameters as were used for the Affordable Connectivity Program, things like free and reduced school lunch, SNAP, Medicaid, supplemental security income, and many more. This means that there are about 5,000 affordable rental and owned units that will be preemptively marketed to by ALLO for awareness of this offer. And then anyone else who qualifies outside of low-income housing will provide an affidavit that they have subscribed to one of these government programs, and up to 6,481 households will ultimately be eligible to apply for this subsidy with ALLO, which means up to 10% of our Boulder households will be eligible for this program, which we felt was a great win and surpassed what the level of participation in the ACP was quite significantly. Additionally, those who qualify will also be eligible for a 100 megabit per second symmetrical service, which will not be offered to other Boulder customers, and this will be offered at a discounted price of $30 a month all in. So this is highly competitive with this tier of service that would be offered in other communities, even those with municipal internet options in Longmont, in Loveland, and so forth. Additionally, ALLO will be providing for all college students in Boulder the ability to upgrade their service. So you pay for a 500 megabit plan and you will receive at the same cost a 1 gig plan. This is a program ALLO offers in some of their cities today, and we've had them memorialize it in the contract to provide here in Boulder throughout the term of the agreement. And then beginning in 2028 or in year 3 of the agreement, ALLO will be offering free gigabit service to 25 nonprofits in Boulder who maintain a brick and mortar location here in the community. These will be chosen for a 3-year participation in the program, and they'll be chosen by a group of diverse community members who will work with ALLO in that selection process, and there'll be opportunity for additional nonprofits to have that opportunity in a rolling 3-year basis. And then lastly on this point, ALLO will be opening a retail storefront here in Boulder that will be accessible by public transportation and will act as a local customer service hub for our folks here in town. Next on is future oriented, and really excited that the network that ALLO would build here off of our backbone is it will be scalable to provide multi-gig services to anybody here in Boulder. So as the need and demand for data consumption rises, we are going to be future-proof in our homes and businesses here in Boulder with this infrastructure and with the infrastructure of our legacy providers. ALLO will also be building over 90% of their network underground, adding to the network's resilience. And they'll be offering their Smart Town program, which will allow ALLO customers in Boulder to jump on Wi-Fi wherever they are within reach of an ALLO router in public spaces, enhancing connectivity for those folks across the city in our public spaces. And then lastly, ALLO, like the city, has a very strong commitment to the environment. They have agreed in the contract to use sustainable construction materials, recycle materials throughout construction and beyond, and to maintain policies and procedures aimed to mitigate any environmental risks associated with their last mile infrastructure. And then last on, you can put up 5 and 6 there. So ALLO is very committed to an open and fair internet. They have committed to not impose any data caps or throttle anyone's internet services, very much upholding the principles of net neutrality. And they also maintain very high standards for data protection, strictly prohibiting the sale, monetization, or exchange of customer data for any commercial purposes, and their consumer privacy standards exceed what is required under the Colorado Privacy Act for this matter. So with that, Don, we can flip to the last slide. That concludes our staff remarks tonight. We can pause here and open up for Q&A.
Thanks so much for that, Mike. Very detailed and informative presentation on this agreement. Does council have any questions for Mike or other staff members on this proposal? Lauren? Taisha?
Thank you. Very excited. So I just want to start off with that. Super important, and all of the wonderful things. So I did have a question about the environment section, which I appreciated having the recycling component mentioned. But I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that this project and this work, the nature of this work, requires digging into earth, right, and putting these lines down. And the fact that that wasn't included in the environmental component is something that I thought was an interesting omission. But it's also, to me, an opportunity, because I was looking for it. Because in the reconstruction, right, of putting that back, there's opportunities to, do native grasses or what, right? I'm just kind of thinking, in what way could we mitigate the disruptions to, soil and habitat to lay down the lines, and how can we potentially, model, the greening the infrastructure, if you will. So that to me was something that I had hoped to see in here, but when I looked at other types of work of this nature, I wasn't necessarily seeing it. So it doesn't seem that it's an industry standard, but it was something that I had a question about, if that was something that that you would be willing to consider, or if you have had any experience in really innovating around greening the infrastructure. So that was one of my 3 questions.
Mike, do you want to respond to that one?
I guess I'd look to folks in the room.
He's
Sure.
getting up, Mike. He was on his way, and then
Would
you
a
started
representative
talking,
from
so he
ALLO
sat
like to
back
come down, introduce yourself, and respond to that question, please? Turn on the mic there, if you would, please.
My name's Brad Moline. I'm the founder and president of ALLO Communications and founded ALLO 22 years ago. A couple of things on the impact, let's just say, is the easiest way to the environment. One, admittedly, it is disruptive. The foresight of the council was to build a 50, 60 mile ring, and you saw the impacts of that. It's a lot of work. One of the things that we've done throughout our entire history is we become part of the community. We're a competitive provider, and so we want to disturb what's seen and what's underneath the earth as little as possible and be a good steward of the earth. Our practices actually, we use a financing program called securitization, and we were the first company of our sort in the United States to get awarded a green bond certification, which meant we take care of above the earth and how we recycle and take care of the not just the earth, but also the people that are working on the project as well. That's a nice third party result, and that's, I think, what you can look towards in how we do our work.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to answer that? And again, just hopeful that that is a consideration. It would be wonderful to work with the OSMP and just really thinking about that disruption and what we can do to mitigate that. So it's really wonderful to hear the green, and again, it would be great to have had that in here as well. So next question is the 25 people or 25 organizations that would be selected in the selection process. So one wonderful, love that aspect of it. But I was just curious, again, since this is a public investment, it seems to be that'll be an internal process, and just kind of thinking from transparency and just making sure, right, that we have a responsibility. But if that responsibility is going to be on you and your team, then what is the reporting and transparency on that?
Yeah, we can. We've done this in other communities. And what we've done is we've made sure the requirements for the application are publicly available. We expect to work with the city leaders and on that. What's happened, though, is that these requirements have been appreciated by other cities and gone through that process. And just on a personal note, the awarding of those is as good a feeling as you can get, because you help these nonprofits not have to raise money to pay me.
Right, I understand that.
And it's a great give back. And I don't want to read too much into the whole program, because I don't have the paper in front of me, and I apologize for that. But we can make it available
no worries.
for tweaks.
Will it be publicly, like who gets the award? Will that be publicly available or reported publicly?
What we've done historically is we've had a period where people apply, and then there's a cross section of ALLO people and the community that choose who gets awarded, and so both the criteria and who gets awarded are very public.
And then who receives
yeah
is also okay. Thank you. That was want to make sure that there was a public component.
And I think we got city staff who want to respond to that as well.
Oh.
And I was just going to highlight, Member Adams. It's right now the contract requires a reasonably diverse advisory committee, so we have I think the plan is to be in communication as to how that committee is constituted and to understand what those awards are. And I think ALLO has expressed a desire to make that public and transparent.
Awesome. Thank you. I strongly recommend we unpack reasonable. And then lastly is the question around the income or low income again. Fantastic benefit. Curious how the cap of 6,491 was identified.
Yeah, Councilmember Adams, I can take that. So we base this on the number of units of affordable housing validated through the city, which is around 5,000 units. And we made some assumptions based on the number of folks who were eligible for the Affordable Connectivity Program and the number of which we believe lived in affordable housing. And we saw about a 20% delta there. And so we added a 20% sort of buffer zone to account for those individuals with low income in the city who don't happen to live in a city verified low income housing dwelling. And so doing that math comes up with the quite specific number of 61. I don't have it up in front of me here, but the 6,100 or so number that you see in the agreement.
Okay, and just point of clarification, that is going to be over the first 20-year period, and that won't increase?
That is at any given time, and it is baked into the contract that we readdress this on a recurring annual basis with ALLO to make sure that the benefit is staying substantially the same. Both the number of folks, the proportion of folks that are receiving benefit, and the actual amount of the benefit is staying substantially equivalent when we see inflationary rises over the term of the lease.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Those are all my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. I got Lauren and then Mark. And then Nicole.
Thank you. My main questions are around the storefront. I appreciate that you guys are planning on doing that, and that the community connectors, suggested that was something that they cared a lot about. One of the things, not related to this industry, but in some other industries that I've been hearing a little bit about, is really a lot of community frustration with public hours not being posted, and so they go to pay a bill to do that and can't access that storefront. Well, I guess in this case, I'm mostly thinking about landlords and some of those kinds of things that can be really difficult for people. We don't have any language in there currently, I believe, around hours, but could you maybe speak to a little bit what your plan is on that front?
Yeah, if I remember right, the statement is standard business hours, which would be in most communities an 8 to 5 type time frame. We operate storefronts in all of our markets, not just to receive payments, but also to learn streaming, to try it before you buy it, those types of things, and to answer a variety of other questions. And so it really becomes more than just a transactional location. And we do have a letter of intent. I don't think I should probably announce exactly where it is yet, because there's only a letter of intent, but on a storefront.
So that regular business hours is something that you guys are committing to?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mark?
A couple of comments. First, congratulations to staff. This is a tremendous achievement, and I really think you've done a great job. And a special shout out to Mike for answering all of my questions so quickly and so substantively. I thank you very, very much.
And
I do.
Mark, sorry to interrupt you, but we are in questions. So, did you have questions or comments?
I have several questions.
Okay, there you go.
In one of your responses to my hotline, you said that the city did not conduct a detailed review of ALLO's financial statements. Is that kind of an error, or is that really the case?
Yeah, I was just referring, Councilmember Wallach, to the fact that, you know, we didn't go through and evaluate every aspect of Allo's business. We made some assumptions based on the relationships that they have with other communities, successful relationships that they have with other communities, the type of debt that we've seen them draw, and the fact that they've had great success in building and expanding their infrastructure in those other communities. There was no intent other than just to make it clear that we didn't we didn't hire any sort of audit or consulting firm to go in and take a deep look at Allo and who they are financially.
Okay, my next question is really for Allo. How many of the communities in which you operate are the size of Boulder?
The size of Boulder.
At 105,000 people.
Yeah, I was I'm going through, Lincoln, Nebraska is our largest. It's the 70th largest community in the United States, and it'd be about 3 times the size. Yuma, Arizona, I think is about exactly 120,000. We've got several in the 70,000 range, and about maybe a half dozen in the 40 to 50,000 range.
Okay. This is something I had asked Mike. It seems to me there are no requirements for the financial credibility of any potential assignee of Allo's interest in the contract. Is that true?
I don't know the details of the contract at that level. I apologize.
I think city staff can take that one.
Yeah. Andy, are you able to respond to that?
Yeah, hi, Member Wallach. There's a general objection to assignments, so that's one of our I guess general safeguards. And then I know, Member Wallach, you had brought up the risk of a foreclosure or some sort of risk of a financial, generally just a mortgage that could result in foreclosure, and there's a couple of safeguards against that. One, I would say, is we have broad rights to contest any sort of foreclosure action. So that's one of the language, some of the language that's in there. But I think more importantly is if they were to assume the rights under the lease agreement through a foreclosure, I think whoever would be stepping into those shoes would have to meet some very detailed requirements, which would probably place them in breach and give us an ability to, if we so desired, to get out of the agreement.
Where are those requirements stated?
For instance, I would just say generally, so all of the requirements concerning, for example, net neutrality, privacy, I mean, we really went in and I would say made it specific to Allo in a way that it would be really hard for somebody to subsume the rights under this lease. But I'll give you one reference in particular that, if I can find it here. I don't want to take up time finding it, but there's a statement that notwithstanding anything in this agreement to the contrary, we have the right to contest any sort of foreclosure action is essentially what it says.
And is it clear to you that we have the right to contest an assignment on the basis of the financial stature of the assignee?
So one of the kind of, I guess, caveats to this is whoever comes into this, if they were to take rights under the lease, they would need a CFA to operate the services, the cable video services that Allo will operate. And under the federal regulations, that's one of the criteria that we would, and in fact, that's one of the criteria you'll need to examine as part of the cable franchise agreement that they'll be applying for shortly. So I don't know if that helps you there. If you'd like for us to refine that further, this meeting is to adopt substantially in the form the contract that we have, but we're happy to take a look at that again if you'd like.
I don't want to take up more time tonight with that, but I'd ask you to look at it and simply do what's appropriate to make sure that if in the event there is such an assignment, we end up with an assignee that is of equal experience, quality, and financial stature as Allo. I don't think that's an unreasonable request.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Is it?
That's it.
Okay, Nicole and then Tina.
Thanks so much for this presentation. I have a couple of questions. One is, if I'm understanding correctly, the lowest service tier is $79. Is that correct?
That's the current price in Colorado today for
Okay.
that.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. And basically the discount that for eligible low-income families would be $30. Is that right?
That's correct, but individuals who qualify for that will also qualify for another tier offered at $60, and applying that discount would then make it $30.
Okay, so they're still getting $30. And I was just wondering, is there any way of getting a service tier where the cost would be equivalent to the discount, so that our lowest income folks would have no cost internet? That anyway, it feels like that's the way to be a leader in equitable access.
Yeah, thanks for that, Council Member Spear. We did go back and forth with Allo quite a bit on what would be financially viable for them to sustain business and would meet our community needs here. We did some analysis on neighboring communities and on what they are providing, and I recognize that, you know, in your mind might not be seen as leading in this, but we wanted to be at least as good as what they were providing in communities like Longmont and Loveland, who have municipalized their internet service, and in other locations nearby. And this $30 a month product with the discount applied is effectively equivalent to what we found in our research in these other communities as well. So we felt as though it was a really good deal for a high quality internet product at a rate that is hopefully affordable to our community members.
Thank you. I don't know if you want to.
If I could help, one other thing, this may be a general statement, but I attended a meeting at the White House, you know, to announce the Affordable Care Plan, and ACP, which currently doesn't exist. We're lobbying hard. We really want it to come back, and it did provide for a zero cost for people. And as a side note, I've been doing this for 30 years. It was the most rational program I thought we'd ever had. And so I'm rooting for it to come back. And I believe it will. May not be in the first year, but I believe in the next 3 years it'll be back.
Yeah, thank you for that. And that makes me think about our federal policy statement, but that's a different discussion. The other question that I had, the no-cost service tier upgrade for students, does that apply to graduate students?
It does. The upgrade, and we have a great participation there. I think we've got several thousand people under that plan. And what it does is it allows people to get just a little bit more speed. They're quite often they're doing just terrific research and things, and they're doing it from home or they're doing it from other locations. And so we want to enable that. Just as a side note, Allo is supportive of education, and that's probably what we lean into the most.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the inclusion of graduate students. That's not common. Thank you.
Thanks. Tina?
Yeah, I just had a general question. That's I'm not as familiar with this industry at all. And when we think about how people are charged, if you have a single family home and it's converted into a duplex, does that turn into two contracts, or does that remain one contract that's split between the two new entities in general?
Normally when it is split, it becomes two separate households, and we kind of follow the household definition. And so usually that would be two separate. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to say it.
Okay, but if there were
And
four,
also if it's combined, two becomes one. Um, my family rehabbed a house that was a duplex and created one, and two became one.
okay, but then if there were 8 people sharing a house, but they're just renting rooms, that would just be one contract split 8 ways. So it doesn't matter how many people are drawing from the resource.
Normally, that would be one. In college towns, sometimes that is our challenge. Is sometimes very many becomes one. Just the nature of a college student in the college environment, and so we generally try to follow how other utilities, how their insurance follows those types of things.
Okay. And then my other question, it's just in the city of Boulder, how do we manage people who are in those strange pockets of county? Do they generally access the same backbone, or would they be treated differently? Like, what would the communication be to those people? It's just a couple areas in the city, right?
Yeah, so I can start on this one, and Andy, feel free to elaborate. Under this contract, we don't have the jurisdiction to enforce ALLO to build outside of city limits. The 80% threshold and the 97% threshold apply only to dwellings within city limits. However, there's also nothing prohibiting ALLO from doing so, and would be advantageous for them, I would imagine, from a business standpoint, to also capture those potential customers as well. Andy, anything you would add to that?
I don't think so.
Thanks.
Okay, and then has there been any discussion with the schools from the Boulder Valley School District and other schools, just how they might be able to also qualify for some of these reduced rates?
For the schools themselves, or for students and families of the schools?
Both.
The schools themselves, no. Don, could I tap on you to just quickly talk through how the schools generally get their internet connections today?
Yeah, so schools today, a lot of them partner with our Front Range Gigapop here, and so they do a lot of dealings with them because they connect our research institutes, schools, and education throughout Boulder. So a lot of them have a deal with them versus going to a private ISP. I said, so most of them are doing that because that's more of that community they're trying to be partnered with. So it's not something we usually would talk to them about because they have this deep partnership with the Front Range Gigapop.
I would just add that one of the deal terms is a broad reservation of rights to serve other governmental entities and provide that service within the city within the 288 of fiber, or the leased portion or the non-leased portion of fiber that we still have. So that availability and that flexibility was something that we negotiated hard for, so that the city could have that future capacity for those uses.
I might add one other thing is most school districts are eligible for E-rate, which is federally subsidized services. ALLO is an E-rate provider, and so I would hate to throw out the exact number, but I'd say it's north of 80% of our communities. We do all the work for the schools over a period of about 5 to 7 years, whether it's voice, internet, layer 2 bandwidth, whatever. We believe that the ecosystem works better when the schools and the students, the city government, and the residents, the hospitals, and the patients can benefit from that. And we saw that in COVID. Lincoln, Nebraska, we had, oh gosh, between probably 8,000 and 10,000 workers go home over a 4-day period, and they never saw a blip because of that ecosystem and how well we were working together.
Thanks for that. Good enough. All right, I have one question for you, which is, let's say there were an apartment building owned by, say, our housing authority, or a privately owned apartment building where they wanted to get one account and then had internal wiring to the individual units. Is there any problem with having one account in a situation like that?
Yeah, what you're describing is a bulk arrangement. That's also been in the policies and debated at the FCC level, whether that maintains. I would estimate that it will bulk arrangements will maintain. We're happy to meet people how they want to do business, whether it's in a bulk arrangement or on an individual basis, and we do that work. Sometimes we have to rewire the entire apartment or other location, and we do that on our investment. One of the things we look at is, this isn't a 2 or 3 year process for us. We look at it and we say it all the time. This is a 30-year decision for us. We've been in business for 22 years. We expect to be here for a while.
Appreciate that. Did you have something, Ryan? Yep.
Just one question, thanks. Are there any conditions under which the system would stop to work or would need to be upgraded because either we add population or we add or the population that we have has greater needs? How to think about the kind of limits of what this system can provide versus what we might think about having need in the future?
That's a great question. We're constantly upgrading. 22 years ago when we started, internet wasn't that important. It was all voice. Fax machines and how fax lines worked. Now you fast forward and now we're talking about gig, multi-gig. We recently tested with one of our vendors 50 gig, and it's publicized. You can Google it. We constantly have to stay ahead. In the end, what's happening here is that there will be competition. There will be more competition than there was yesterday, and that is a good thing. The various providers will constantly invest more and more so that they can stay ahead, and that's and when you have fiber and all fiber, that's vital. And then it also becomes how you work with students. One of the comments earlier was about our smart education or smart life products. The kids with the Chromebooks, we've enabled it so that if we have a relationship with the school, basically if they authenticate their devices, if a student can see an Allo router, they can get back to their school to do homework. We developed this after COVID. To me, it's a shame that we had kids sitting outside of a coffee shop or a hamburger place just to do work, get their schoolwork done.
Not to cut you off, but just looking at our future here.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. We developed this, and the first, I think, in the country to offer it, and it's making a difference. And so you just constantly have to upgrade. AI will be another one. Who knows how people will be using that in their homes and businesses.
Great. Thanks for all those answers. All right, I think we are ready to go to the public hearing. So I'll open that up. We have 2 speakers, one in person and one virtual. So David Adamson, come on down. You got 3 minutes to speak to us. That is if you're in the room. Not sure. Okay, well, let's go to our virtual participant, which is Lynn Siegel. So Lynn, you're up. You have 3 minutes.
No. We can own our fiber optics. We can own our own fiber like Longmont does. We can make money for our customers instead of Allo making money through us. That's community benefit. So what are you doing here again? Like with our municipal electric, which we're going to have in 2025. And if we don't, then we'll have it. The next exit ramp possible. The business model is wrong. Owning it ourselves, we can do what we need to do ourselves. And we don't have a profit advantage for some corporate entity like Allo is. Why do you do this? Why do you agree to these things? Why? We don't need Allo. We need the city of Boulder fiber optics, like Longmont. You know, there needs to be an iterative conversation here because this is getting scammed to us through the city. Again, this is some benefit to us? No, it's not. Self-ownership is the benefit. Longmont put out all their fiber to each individual household, and they're making money on it. The city is making money, and we have enough constraints on our budget with the city of Boulder. We can't even afford the hotel rooms for the homeless like we did last year. And ARA, we can get funds from ARA, the same as ALLO can. But you know what? In a Trump administration, you've got to be kidding. We're never going to get ALLO funds. That's so yesterday. The social safety net is gone with Don Trump. We need more than ever now to own it ourselves. Think about this administration we're coming into. We're going to have our community struggling. We don't need another corporate entity owning us for 20 years, 20 more years. We need our own. Didn't you learn it with Excel Energy and Boulder Power and Light? No, you didn't. You're going to learn it eventually. Bigger's not better. The community benefit is ownership. Then we do what we want in any myriad ways that we need to.
Your time's up, but thank you for your testimony. Last call for David Adamson. Okay. Sorry, David. All right, I'm going to close the public testimony portion of the public hearing and bring it back to City Council, who would like to kick off our discussion on the proposed motion in front of us. Nicole.
I am happy to offer my comments. I just largely wanted to say thank you. We had a laundry list of asks, and this really is an impressive negotiation. So thanks to Andy and the City Attorney's Office, and to Mike and Dawn and everybody in IT, in our IT department. And also thank you, Brad and Allo, for being here and for partnering with us. I think it says a lot that the president of the company is here. I was and still remain a little bit nervous about bringing a for-profit company in on this project. Things don't tend to go well for a lot of folks in our community when people's ability to access their basic needs is sold for a profit. But given that we didn't have the funds to finish this build out and provide internet access as a purely public service, you all have done a really good job of finding a middle ground here and making sure that our community is looked out for and making sure that all of the things that we were looking for in a public-private partnership have been addressed. So I just want to thank you all for partnering on this and for giving us so many of the things we were looking for. So thank you. This is really impressive work.
Teresa, did you want to weigh in?
I do. We just had an oversight, and when we introduced the team, in addition to those already named, I wanted to acknowledge Rewa Ward, our paralegal, who has been supporting this effort and here this evening.
Thank you, Rewa. Yeah, Matt. Yeah.
All right, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve and authorize the city manager to enter into execute and negotiate administrative amendments prior to or during the term a 20-year fiber backbone lease agreement in substantially the same form as in attachment A between the City of Boulder and Allo Communications LLC, leasing the city's dark fiber backbone for retail broadband services with the City Council, finding that the lease and the construction associated therewith will provide a public benefit to the City of Boulder. And I'll just make a quick, let's get a second, then I'll make a comment.
Second.
Nice.
If you'd like to speak to your motion.
Yeah, I appreciate my colleagues asking some really good questions, and I'll just echo Mayor Pro Tem's compliments. This is a long time coming when the community said, hey, we want to do this and here's some money, and we made it work. I know that in this industry, owning the infrastructure is usually key. And the fact that we found a partner that was willing to work with us as the owner of that infrastructure, I think showed a tremendous bridge with that partner. And so I just want to say thank you for that, because I understand that those pressures to own the infrastructure in this industry, and you guys worked with us, and that was great. We thought that would have been a hurdle, and it turns out that it's actually going to create a great partnership. So thank you so much. So this is a great opportunity, and it's great to make do when the voters say go do forth, and we do. And here we are at the precipice of making that promise made. So excited for the opportunity.
Thanks for that, Matt. And I'll speak to my second. This has been a long road in coming, so echo the thanks. Mayor Pro Tem Spear, you outlined those very, very well. Matt, you built upon them too. But just I was around when we were making these early decisions back in 2017, 18, and 19, and we looked at the dollar amounts required and said, we can't do this on our own. But what we could afford is build a backbone, and we can start with that as a public utility and then see where we can get from there. And that was something of a leap of faith. Completed the backbone. Huge thank you to everybody in the city that oversaw that and made that happen. And now it's built. And then we said, what could we do next? Could we get a private partner? Because again, the public investment required is outside of our scope of financial ability. And Alo, I so much appreciate you stepping up with an excellent RFP and complying with all 6 of our primary goals. And so here we are today. I'm very excited to vote in favor of this and start what hopefully will be a decades-long partnership to finally realize the goal of at least municipally partnered broadband that I think is going to provide an enormous benefit to our residents for years to come. So it's been a huge, huge team effort. I think each and every one of you who's taken a major role in this, and looking forward to seeing it come into fruition. All right. Any other comments before a vote? We got Mark, I got Lauren.
Yeah, I think I've been pretty clear that I think this is a terrific achievement. Staff has done a wonderful job, and we're on the verge of providing a great service for the community. My only last comment is I would urge staff to take another look at those assignment provisions and provide us a little more protection in the event there is an assignment of Alo's contract position. As a steward of the city's financial position, I really do not want to end up with a partner of any less capability, experience, or financial strength than Alo, and I think that that's an easy fix. And I would ask you to take a look at that if you could.
Very good, Lauren.
Thank you. I still wish that we were pursuing municipal fiber internet. I believe that utilities like water, sewer, electricity, and internet should be owned and operated by the community. However, in terms of a possible private partnership, I do think Alo and this agreement are a strong option for us, and that this will give us the opportunity to move forward with the much needed faster internet for our community on a faster timeline. So thank you.
All right, not seeing any other hands raised. I'll go ahead and call for a vote. Emily, should we do a roll call on this one?
Yes, sir. We will do a roll call vote. And we'll start the roll call vote on tonight's public hearing item 5A with Councilmember Wallach.
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Councilmember Adams?
Yes.
Benjamin?
Yes.
Mayor Brockett?
Yes.
Folkerts?
Yes.
Marquis?
Yes.
Schuhard?
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem Spear.
Yes.
Item 5A is hereby approved unanimously.
All right. Well, thanks for that, and congratulations. And Alo, we're looking forward to the partnership in the years and decades to come. And before we wrap up, I just want to give a final big, huge shout out to Mike Giansanti. Mike, you've done so much to bring this to fruition, and we wish you could be here in person with us for this evening's hearing, but appreciate you showing up virtually and hope you feel much better soon.
Thanks, Mayor Brockett, and certainly a huge team effort here. I cannot take credit for all, so thanks to the whole team.
Absolutely. All right, and with that, if we can go to our continued public hearing, please, our last agenda item of the evening.
Absolutely, Mayor. We are now on to our last item on tonight's agenda, and that is public hearing item 5A, and that is the continued public hearing to consider a motion to find that there is interest in considering a service area expansion into Area 3 Planning Reserve as part of the 2025 major update to the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan.
The good thing about reading the whole title is it gives the team time to come into place.
That's right. So we have Christopher Johnson and Sarah Horn from PNDS that are here up on the dais. This is a continued public hearing, and so we're going to kind of pick this up right where you left off from the end of the public hearing. So it's really back to you as council for deliberations, but staff is here to answer any questions that you may have.
Very good. And KJ and Sarah, are you offering any other additional words, or should we leap right in?
You are welcome to leap right in. We do have the presentation available from last week in case you wanted to pull up any of those slides, and we have some staff available either in the room or virtually to help answer questions.
Great. And just would you mind, for the record, letting us all know what planning board's result and decision was on Tuesday night?
Yes, thank you. So planning board voted 7-0 unanimously to find that there was an interest to move forward with exploring expansion as part of this next BBCP update. So that would essentially authorize staff to move forward with the community needs study as part of the comp plan update.
Okay, very good. So, all right, so we can launch into council discussion here about this possibility of a motion, of the motion in front of us. And I will just note that this is one step amongst multiple of them, that if we do decide to take this next step, that there are several points in the future where we could either decide to continue or decide not to continue. So it is one step as part of a process. Who'd like to start with whether they would like to consider expansion? Yeah, Taisha.
Thank you. So I am very clear that this is a multi-process, tiered process. What I'm not clear on is if this process will allow, so I have raised concerns around the completeness of the baseline study and the omission of critical components that I would think would be necessary for a baseline study. Specifically, the lack of the Colorado River Basin at all mentioned or considered for this. So 1/3 of our water supply was not even considered in this conversation. The other thing that was not considered is wildfires, and specifically the amount of water that comes from the reservoirs to take the water, to address that. So that is also not considered, nor just wildfires in general, and the known increases in wildfire. In addition to that, there was no habitat assessment of the current lands to determine wildlife, grasslands. The way that it is written assumes that there is no current benefit of that planning reserve or that area. It is very human centered, and so my question is, it is not clear to me if the next steps before you go out and ask community or do community anything, we are still not 100. We still do not have all of or what I believe to be critical information related to non-humans. In addition to that, there's also the energy component, which is mildly addressed, but I think that there was an invitation to continue to expand that as well. And so, although I can understand the interest, right? My concern is that we will move to the next phase, which is community input, similar to what happened with the airport when there is critical information that wasn't included in that initial study.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. So related to the water supply in Colorado River. I believe that we did provide some clarifications around how those models were prepared. And certainly our teammates and utilities can speak to that. Regarding some of the other studies, as far as environmental studies and other things like that, we envision those would certainly be part of those future phases. So this second step of the process is related to, again, just assessing the community need and exploring whether or not expansion is really necessary. If that were to be true or found to be the case, and expansion was authorized to then create something called the Service Area Expansion Plan, that is where we would get into much deeper analysis of the future land use types and other things as to what this place could be. And as part of that, we would have much further conversations around what are the existing environmental conditions, how might those be incorporated into future development, and as the neighborhood would evolve, or as we would plan for future development in the area, that's when that would be incorporated. But not as part of that initial urban services study.
Right. And so I guess where my concern is literally why I ran for council is because I feel like or rather the current planning process is very human centric. And when habitat is in round 3, it shows, right? We have wildlife corridor issues right now as a community. Which I know is hard because you see the flat irons and you're like, wow, we've got so much, but actually critters need to go throughout the city. And again, as a former commissioner for Colorado Parks and Wildlife, even in the city of Boulder, this is a problem. We have significant habitat loss across the state because of development. And again, I was hopeful that in the update to the BVC plan that there would be opportunities for us to actually update the criteria for these studies so that we can, again, it was my understanding that the criteria was created in 1997 or 6 when I graduated from college. And I think there were some minor updates in 2021. My larger point is given where we are in the planet, with the climate, economically, I just have concerns that that some of these critical I am concerned that I have more information around commercial space, residential space, open space, et cetera, and I have not as much information around habitat, energy, water. Those things should be driving how much infrastructure, commercial, et cetera, not the other way around. And so that is where really my concern with moving forward, if there isn't prioritization on getting some of this critical information, and especially the wildfire component, which was not addressed in that. Also, another area that was not addressed at all was local agriculture. I know we have 1,000 acres of land, but as we think about more people, this is a real invitation. And I understand that goes to the subcommittee, but that also is the way we've always done business. And that is what I'm on this council to disrupt, because that way we have done business is resulting in increased or decreased air quality, water quality, and soil conditions. So, those are my concerns. Again, I see the interest and I want to say yes, but if we're going to just keep moving forward and waiting until stage 3 or 4 for some of these critical components that really should be, in my opinion, and to ecologists and biologists around the world, should not be in stage 4 when we have a significant habitat situation. Thank you.
Point taken. Thanks, Taisha. I got Mark, then Tina.
I'm going to sign on to just about everything that Taisha just said. I think all of those issues are important. In fact, they're critical. I also have, as my hotlines have demonstrated, a real disagreement with respect to the concept of how we're going to pay for hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe $1 billion worth of infrastructure. I am absolutely unconvinced of the mechanisms that have been offered for the manner in which that's going to get done. Since the housing gets built last and the infrastructure gets built first, we're actually going to have to fully finance that infrastructure. We're saying we don't have enough money for a South Boulder Rec Center, Yet we're prepared to go down a path that will require us to undertake several hundred millions of dollars worth of infrastructure. I don't see the capability. I don't see the plan. And in terms of the unmet community needs study, I can save you a great deal of time and effort. It's going to come out with a decision that we want housing. And most people are going to say we want affordable and middle income housing. And that's great. I support that. But you need to have a roadmap of how to get from here to there. And when you're expending that kind of money on infrastructure, I don't know how you're going to end up achieving more than a cursory amount of affordable and middle income housing. I don't look upon this as simply an opportunity to develop several thousand housing units. That is not of great community benefit. We have plenty of units of housing, and we're going to have plenty more in East Boulder and in other areas. What I don't think we have is that kind of middle income housing, and there is nothing in this process that's made me more comfortable that we have a clue as to how to get it. And doing a build out in Area 3 primarily for the benefit of property owners there is simply not very interesting to me. Doing it in a way that gets us, serious, affordable, and middle income housing, fine. Then I would be happy to have that conversation. But I don't think we know enough about any of these key subjects to be moving down the road and simply saying, but we have step 2 and we have step 3, and we'll figure it out in step 2 and in step 3. At some point, you create your own momentum, and I don't want to see that momentum created until we have answers to the myriad questions that are being posed by Taisha. I'd like to see a few of mine answered, and I'm sure a few of my colleagues have questions as well. So I may well be in a minority on this, but I think this is not ready for prime time.
Thanks, Mark. I got Tina and then Lauren.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm following up a little bit with Councilmember Adams' comments about water. I appreciate that there are a lot of off ramps in this process, and take that to heart. And I think it is worth looking at the reserve, but only as part of an overall vision, which is the BVCP, comp plan process, and also looking, hopefully as a council together, hearing the same information together at what the water trade-offs are going to be in our community, and also with our neighbors. And our neighbors also they have housing goals, and they're trying to get water as well. This is a whole regional issue, and I'm hoping we can get a regional lens when we have those water discussions, in particular, because it doesn't behoove us to hurt our neighbors on their water supply if we're building more in our community. So that's, and so many people who work in Boulder are living in our neighboring regions. So I want to be sensitive to how those neighborhoods are going to be experiencing the climate future. So I'm not so much against the exploration, but my expectation and what I'll be advocating for during this process is that we create a regional vision and a regional understanding of water. The other piece is what we see sometimes is we start, like what I wouldn't want to see happen is we pursue Area 3 and we start with the words, it's going to be affordable housing that's a middle income housing type like a townhome or a duplex, which is similar to how we started the affordable housing, which then became the family-friendly, vibrant neighborhoods. I hope that if we do pursue some type of development, that we're able to create a mechanism where it stays into some type of housing that is an unmet need in our community now. And to do it in a way that it's difficult for it to time out, like the civic use pad next to the St. Julian, or be morphed quickly so that we can commit to an affordable housing goal. And hopefully, it's interesting, this is really a very small version of sprawl that we're looking at, that we have just spent a lot of time passing a transit bill at the state level to reduce sprawl and sort of not go in this direction. At the same time, we recognize the need for this other kind of housing type. I think this is a really good community discussion on whether we have the appetite for this direction, which is something we've really been moving away from as a community. So, ultimately, I think the discussion is worth it, but I want the discussion to bring a richness to the whole discussion so that we either recommit to our vision of sort of this more local density that can have a sort of a more bikeable, walkable future with the, I haven't quite seen the bodega yet, but we talk about it all the time. And also have a really good understanding on what our water usage does to the region and what it looks like in the future. So I'm ultimately actually going to be a yes vote, but hoping that it elevates the discussion in a way that we have a better regional view and a really good urban feel for where we're headed, so that we don't just jump on projects, and the other pieces we stick to what we said and have a mechanism to ensure it.
Thanks, Lauren, and then Mark. Or no, Matt.
I'm really glad I get to go after that. Thank you, Tina. I guess I have a question, which is sort of related to those things Tina outlined in terms of a regional, kind of looking at the water through a regional lens, and also how this might be different than just doing the same thing we've done again and creating sprawl. Where does that go in our process?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So we anticipate that conversation around really what this place wants to be, and that's a community conversation, that would be part of step 3 when you're actually developing the expansion plan. So step 2, kind of in reference to Councilmember Marquis' comments, that the planning reserve would be evaluated as a component of this larger community conversation as part of the comprehensive plan update. Not, the sole focus, but it certainly would be one solution that would be on the table to evaluate that community need. Then if an expansion was authorized, that's when we would get into the much more details around what does this place look like? What are the housing types? What types of sustainability measures or green infrastructure or habitat protection, all the things that we want to have that conversation around as far as the kind of the tangible things of what does this place look like. That would happen as part of that step 3.
So I see in the step before this, there's a portion that says engage the community to explore various policies, tools to meet community needs, including service area expansion, and weigh possible trade-offs of each alternative. So if we're not getting to that level of detail, how is the community weighing trade-offs?
Yeah, so I think you're referring probably to what we had outlined as maybe the third phase of this community needs study, which would be folded into that alternatives analysis as part of the comprehensive plan. So what we had anticipated and sort of envisioned of how this plugs into the overall comp plan update is that, again, the planning reserve would be one option evaluated against a number of other potential policy changes to accommodate if the need is identified of housing. We might explore, are there other regulatory changes that can loosen up, density within other parts of the city? Might we even look as far as, increasing density around transit nodes or looking at the height limit in specific locations of the city, and exploring the planning reserve as another outlet or another alternative that we could evaluate as far as what does that look like in terms of the number of units, the number of jobs that could be created, the greenhouse gas emissions, water use, all those types of things will be sort of built into our scenario analysis. So that's what we intended for, weighing of those trade-offs and kind of understanding that. And then again, if we get sort of past that point and we do recognize that the planning reserve is a viable option and is something that needs to be further explored and really consider that expansion, that's when we would really get into those conversations around how do we do that so that we are serving that need, but also protecting and really serving the future generations of the community through that.
Thank you. And if we choose to move forward with this tonight, are we
rubber stamping that process as well, or will we have opportunity to have feedback on this process that's outlined, or what the scope of those?
Yeah, on the community needs process, is that what you're referring to, or?
I think how we're thinking of things like that phase 3, how we're framing that trade-off conversation.
Sure.
And what
sure.
level of information we're providing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So, as far as the overarching procedures regarding, step 2 of the community needs study, step 3 of a service area expansion plan, those procedures that are already in the comprehensive plan, those could be changed as part of this comp plan update. But as they are established for where we are today. The community needs study of how we will actually do that work as part of the comp plan update, which we included that sort of preliminary outline of what we're initially thinking of in the memo. That is all subject to change because that's staff's initial sort of understanding of how might we fold this into the overall comp plan process. So we can certainly have additional conversations around, what does that look like? What are the types of analysis that you'd be looking for at each of those steps throughout that process?
Thank you. I appreciate that. And with that, I think I will be supporting this, but I will be interested in taking a closer look at the portions of that process that we can influence. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, I got Matt, Nicole, Ryan.
Appreciate it. I'm going to start with a question that maybe dovetails a little bit off what Lauren was talking about, and it's kind of with regards to the service expansion plan. That seems to me where the rubber meets the road here. I think that's where the details are baked in. To some extent, I think some of the concerns that even Taisha brought up, that it's that stage, which is, I've heard it analogous to our area plans, is where just a lot of that stuff finally takes shape. It's where we finally put paint to canvas, more or less. And so I guess the question is all right, we go through that process, we develop that, at what point can that maybe potentially be revised, right? I mean, we're still talking a decade or two of staggered development in this place. Our needs could certainly change by then, or the information around those needs could change in that time. And so I'm wondering what's the interval, what's the process in which the service expansion plan, aka area plan, can be modified or tweaked down the road after we then pursue the annexation process?
Yeah, sure. So as any type of area plan or sub-community plan, those can be amended through a public hearing and through a planning board and city council process. Both bodies would have to approve what those amendments would be at some point in the future. We recognize that if we got as far as developing a service area expansion plan, we recognize that the eventual development of this area is likely to be on the scale of 15 to 25 years, maybe even longer. So I think we would be fooling ourselves if we thought we could figure it all out at that one time. And so I think the approach that we, would take would be to look at what are the initial phases? What are the things we know about and can be confident in terms of making those decisions at that point? Build that into the expansion plan, and then have either some placeholders or other sort of big bubble diagrams, essentially, so those future phases could then be revisited and refined at that point. Obviously, sort of reflecting back to some overarching principles and vision that would be established as part of that expansion plan. The last thing I'll mention too is I think by incorporating the need study into the comprehensive plan, it gives us an opportunity that if we're going in the direction of moving towards an expansion plan at some point in the future, we can build in some of those policies and some of that broader vision statements into the comprehensive plan itself. So we already have a jump start on kind of what this place might want to be. So we can begin to scratch the surface of that conversation, I'd say a little bit ahead of the expansion plan, just through the comp plan update, because we'll be having that conversation with the community as a whole.
I appreciate that. And my sort of last question related to that is, you sort of mentioned phasing. Can we actually create phased zones of the service expansion plan? because thinking about the whole area all at once, one, takes a lot of time, and also maybe harder with 40 different property owners to achieve. But if we broke it up into chunks, we might be able to instigate development at a more rapid time frame at smaller scales, and then sort of stagger that over time. So I'm wondering, does that have to be done at once, or can we do that staggering?
Yeah, we can definitely do that as a staggered and phased process. There is some language in the comprehensive plan now about the service area expansion plan that in order to proceed with a sort of comprehensive manner, the smallest each of those phases should be is about 40 acres. Okay. So about a tenth or so of the overall area. So conceivably it could be broken down into as many as 10 or 11 different phases, but I think you could probably do it in a 3 to 4 phase type of process.
Appreciate that. Well, thanks for answering those questions, and I'll just end with a few comments. I said last time, and I was sort of, saying it in jest with regards to, our word bubble here, but we throw around housing crisis in everything we do. And so I really think this is kind of a put up or shut up moment for us, where if we're really going to be serious about addressing a housing crisis, I don't know how we sit on our hands and let 500 acres hang out for another 5 years or 10 years without starting to do something. And I think any crisis requires you to act now and, to some extent, fly the plane while you fix it. We can't let perfection be the enemy of good when we're dealing with a housing crisis, and we have to start making our strides when we go down that direction. And I think it's just critical that we do that. And so I'm appreciative of the effort we're on, but also recognizing that these are the steps that were baked in by previous councils, and we don't have the luxury of rewriting the rules every time, because that sets a dangerous precedent that the rules we set with good intentions get rewritten just a couple years from now. So I think we need to follow those steps, and we're going to have the opportunities to tweak, modify, and continue to address community needs as they come up. But that doesn't mean we dismiss the concerns that have been brought up. I think there's opportunities for us to bring that stuff in. But I don't believe we're at a place where we can say we don't have enough information, because we're in the process of gathering that information. I think we have to get further along before we can look back and see what holes remain in our understanding of the process going forward. So I'm going to be supporting this. I think it's kind of a must. This was a land bank for us a long time ago to address the very needs that are in front of us, and here they are. And I would say we probably should have addressed this 10 years ago, but here we are now. And so I think it's critical that we get the ball rolling.
Thanks. Nicole?
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for the presentation and for reminding us where we left off. Appreciate it. I'm kind of similar to Tina. I support moving forward. I also just am trying to not go in with a predetermined outcome. I am really interested in having information about what we need in general, and then whether this land could help us meet any of those needs. I think there's a lot of things that we need that we've talked about. It is housing, yes, but it's also agricultural land. If you talk to some folks in the community, it's tennis and pickleball courts. There's all kinds of things that people want, and I'm really curious to see what comes out of the BVC process. So I would like to include it there. But I really see this as two kind of distinct questions that we'll get out of this needs assessment. One is, what do we need in the city? And then, is this land a good use for one, or to meet one of those needs? And I just don't see how we can answer those questions without the information that we're going to get through the needs assessment. So I'm supportive, really interested in having a clearer understanding of how we answer those two questions moving forward.
Thanks, Nicole. I got Ryan, Tara, and then I'll go.
Okay. I forgot who said this, but I joined someone, I think, in being skeptical that we need this housing on our outskirts. I think we have plenty of housing in our already developed areas. And just a point on this, I've heard today a few people sort of ask, what are the goals? Why do we care about housing? And I'd just like to offer that, there's another meeting taking place right now, and that's the UN Climate Conference. And the headlines, unfortunately, are the same thing that they are pretty much every year, is that we aren't taking this seriously. And one of the things that the climate science is pretty clear about is that we need to build more compact, space-efficient communities that allow people to not have to drive cars and live so energy expensively. And if we do this and others do it with us, we will build a more water and energy efficient place to live, and we'll create more money to share resources to have better shared infrastructure. And one of the things that the IPCC and the experts tell us is that the existing patterns in which we are working don't work. The way that we have cars that are multiplying all of our impacts, which we force to drive around by not letting people live near where they need to go, is the face of our climate crisis. And the level of water and energy and other resources we're consuming as a town also aren't consistent with a serious approach to getting our arms around our climate future in a responsible way. So just one other quick, hopefully not a digression. Many people talk about visiting places like Delft or Utrecht in the Netherlands that are, the Netherlands, that are transit rich, they're bikeable and they're walkable, they're lovely, they're peaceful, and in many ways. And one might ask, gosh, how dense are those places compared to Boulder? And the answer is they're both twice as dense. Delft is about the same size as we are in population, around 100,000. Utrecht is around 3 times our population, but similar-ish area. So we have work to do to transform our town. Area 3 might be part of it, and I think we should be exploring that. But my starting point is we have the space and the means and the resources and the mandate to do it here. So I joined Nicole in not preordaining what we do, but I do think it's important that we make Area 3 part of our wider set of possible futures as we look at the BVCP, and also as we think about the wider region and the housing that it needs to build and that we need to work on it with. I agree with Taisha very much that the sequencing of issues is inelegant, perhaps, not your words, Taisha, but I hear you about that. And I'm hopeful that as we go forward, we'll get to really be serious about some of those evaluations with habitat and water. I think that's mostly what I had. Just to conclude, to say that I'm excited about Area 3, even though I've said that I don't know that we need to develop it, but I do think it's important that we have it as an option. And if I had my choice of sequencing, I would say we start with the condition that this will be a contribution to all Boulderites being able to live joyous lives with less reliance on cars, that we won't be talking about widening roads at any point, but rather we'll be using the chance to calm and reduce the capacity on our roads in the region up there. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you for your work on this.
Thanks, Ryan. Tara?
Well, no more needs to be said. This is the first time I think I've been remote and I've been able to listen to you all, and it's been a great conversation. So all I can say, first of all, why is my view just looking at myself? That's my first question. So I'm just going to agree with this conversation. I'll be voting yes because I feel like we need more information, and I like where everybody's going. So it sounds like it's yes, but, and I appreciate that, or yes, possibly, and that we're not making any firm decisions because we need more information. So thank you. I want to thank everybody who spoke tonight because it was a really super interesting conversation, and I'm glad that I can be a part of this. Thanks.
Thanks, Tara. And I'll go, but Taisha, you want to make one more point before?
Thanks, appreciate you. Thank you for letting me double dip. There's 2 things I didn't speak on, and that is the Excel Energy conversation that is going to be happening in the next year and a half that'll have significant impacts on the future of our city. Again, not a reason why not to, but just something else that is going to take a lot of time and energy of our community and our staff. And the other piece is going back to the agriculture component and just lifting up that both agriculture and habitat, to me, are as professionalized as water and energy. And again, the idea that that would be in step 4 is just, I can't get over that. Anyway, I'll let it go. And then the last is Trump 2.0. And I would be remiss if I did not bring up the fact that you know, based on what was campaigned on alone, we can anticipate being on our heels, just on the values alignment on what was shared on the campaign trail and the values that we hold as a city. And so I also want to lift up the reality that every single day is going to be an assault on something, on someone. And it's going to take up an unbelievable amount of bandwidth to do that. So I will say, one of the things that makes me feel better about moving forward, because it sounds like there's a majority to do that, is what what Matt brought up. That I appreciate that we are not bound to having to think or even talk about the whole area. I am much more willing to talk about smaller pieces or something like that. I do not feel like it is good for, this isn't an opinion. Habitat isn't somebody's opinion, right? It is factual, and it is an expertise that should be in the front, and it should be a part of the trade-off, similar with agriculture. And so it's not enough to just say how many grocery stores. We need a wholesale reimagining of how we feed community. We have food security issues that are going to continue to exacerbate. So I just wanted to lift those up again as concerns and things that we are going to have to mitigate. I'm just remembering, the first Trump administration, and every day I was working in public education, and every single day there was an affront that took up a significant amount of time. And by the end of that administration, we were so far behind on our plans because we were on our heels most of the time. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Well, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. So I move that we find that there is interest in considering a service area expansion into the Area 3 Planning Reserve as part of the 2025 major update to the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, so I'll just speak to my motion. I really appreciate the conversation with my colleagues here. A lot of really excellent points have been made. So thanks for enriching the discussion. Lots of really excellent questions as well. And Nicole, I appreciate what you said about how the only way we're going to answer these questions is to go ahead and move to this next step, right? And I particularly appreciate that we would do it as part of the larger comprehensive plan. So I think doing the needs analysis, I feel like right now is the right time in particular, because doing the needs analysis on the planning reserve while we're doing the needs analysis for the city as a whole, while we think about revisioning our future for the next 20 to 30 years, is the right kind of way to synchronize our thinking and our planning efforts. So I'm really looking forward to getting this kicked off and looking at it holistically, taking into account, Taisha, all those incredibly important issues that you raised, which I know that staff has heard about that and will come as part of the next phase or the phase after that, because we have to consider them before we make an eventual decision about whether to make this land annexable. Matt, I thought that was an excellent point about potential phasing. So that's definitely something to think about and keep on the table. And Ryan, to your point, like we've got to think about it in the most climate-friendly, forward-thinking way. I mean, I think if we do take this on, I envision a future for this area that would set a model for every other community in the country, and be people from all over the country and the world could learn from. I think we need to look at the bar of excellence that high for if and when we get to this eventually. So I think it's an exciting next step. It's been a long time in coming, and looking forward to engaging with you all on it over the next year or two. Any other? Well, I think everybody's spoken, so I will go ahead and call for a vote. If we could do a roll call, please.
Absolutely. We'll start the roll call tonight on item 5B with Councilmember Weiner.
Yes.
Adams?
Yes, with reservations.
Benjamin?
Yes.
Mayor Brockett?
Yes.
Folkerts?
Yes.
Marquis?
Yes.
Councilmember Shuhard?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Spear?
Yes.
And Councilmember Wallach?
Reluctantly, no.
Okay, so item 5B is hereby approved with a vote of 8-1.
Okay. Thanks again, everybody, for the discussion, and thanks for all the fantastic work by staff for getting us to this point. And of course, there's a lot of work left to do, and we look forward to engaging in it with you. Anything else that you need from us tonight?
I don't think so, but thank you for your conversation and for keeping us honest and keeping us on top of things. And we will definitely be talking to you a lot more about this in the future. So thank you.
Very good. Good. Okay, thanks everybody. That brings us to the end of our agenda. So I can go ahead and gavel us closed here at 8:53 p.m., which is about 50 minutes early. Thanks for a good meeting, everybody.